A Midnight Sun is a philosophical and semi-autobiographical novel that follows George, a Georgian illegal immigrant in the United States, as he searches for spiritual truth, love, and meaning across cultures, religions, and personal failures. Blending realism with introspection and written as a fusion of dialogue, memoir, and reflective prose, the novel reveals how the enigmatic world both intrigues and torments its protagonist. The opening scene takes place in a security guard's booth, where George, the main character, is reading the final pages of The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, a book recommended to him by his colleague Levin. Discouraged by the inhuman conditions of his workplace, symbolized by the absence of even a restroom, and by the poverty and moral decay of his homeland, epitomized by a deceitful beggar, yet encouraged by the hopeful ending of Coelho's novel, George decides to go abroad once again to seek his fortune. As the narrative unfolds, it gradually transforms from ordinary conversation into a profound journey through memory and conscience. George wrestles with the contradictions of life: ambition versus morality, faith versus doubt, sensuality versus spirituality. His recollections of Georgia, the austerity of Orthodox faith, the poetic melancholy of Tbilisi, and the fierce pride of a small but ancient nation stand in stark contrast to the cold materialism and the differing moral frameworks he finds in the West. The enigmatic, figurative language in the following sections hints that George's struggles go far deeper than the hardships of life in a poor country. His long and candid conversations with his roommate Jamal gradually uncover remarkable episodes of his past, revealing that George is a sociopath with a complex personality. His next dialogue with Moisha, his employer, exposes his obsessions, not only with beauty and religion, but also with darkness, negative emotions, and destructive ideas. These fixations become so intense that George drifts between the real and the imaginary, unable to distinguish one from the other. Through his encounters with fellow immigrants, co-workers, and women of diverse backgrounds, George becomes a mirror, reflecting the clash of cultures and inner worlds. His personal philosophy evolves through meditations on love, beauty, and religion. The third part of the novel deepens the portraits of the secondary characters and offers a richer portrayal of Georgian culture. It brings the conflicts among the characters to their culmination and resolution. Unlike his compatriots Guido and Jamal, George fails to obtain legal status in the United States and returns to his homeland, his Hollywood dream unfulfilled. His battles with the material world, with other people, and with his own fallen nature and mental illness lead him ultimately to Jesus Christ and his teachings. In the end, George arrives at a luminous realization that humanity is the nectar of God, ripening on earth through suffering. At its core, The Midnight Sun is not merely the story of an immigrant, but the journey of a soul through the material world, a pilgrimage of faith, identity, and self-redemption, told with an intimacy that blends confession, satire, and philosophical reflection. The Midnight Sun. Part 1. I am reading the epilogue of The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. A loud knocking at my booth door startles me. I open it and step outside, since there isn't enough room inside to let Levon, my colleague, in. You startled the life out of me. Oh, I'm sorry. Is it so difficult for you to do me a favor and be polite enough to tap at the door gently? I apologize again and promise to be more considerate next time. I've finished it. What? Reading the book. What book? The one you recommended to me the other day. Ah, The Alchemist? Yes, The Alchemist. Did you like it? The book reads well, and its main message is that you can shape your own fortune regardless of how difficult the obstacles you encounter are. If you want something very much, the whole universe conspires to help you achieve your goal. Can such a thing happen in reality? Why not if you have good karma and are fortune's favorite? But so far, Our karma is to sit in this booth and wait patiently for fortune to smile on us. If only we had a restroom here, I'd spend the rest of my life sitting in this booth, reading books and listening to music. How long are we supposed to keep going to the park just to use a toilet? Until we've burnt our karma, says my colleague, smiling. But don't you dream of something better than just having a toilet here? I dream of making my neighbors less greedy, more humble, and more humane. How did they wrong you? Somebody regularly dumps garbage by my door. Another sells illegal drugs right in front of my window. Yet another demolished his old single-story house and built a new 3-story one in front of mine without permission from the mayor's office. He made it 1.5 meters taller than he'd promised me and blocked my view of the city. My neighborhood is on a slope, so my other next-door neighbor's house is higher than mine. He thinks only he is entitled to have a 2-story house. Once I pretended I wanted to build a 2nd floor just to test whether he'd allow it, and he objected. My other next-door neighbor's tenants almost drove me crazy. They gave me such a hard time that I took to drinking and smoking. What did they do? They were a newly married couple and a friend of theirs. They slept during the day and talked loudly at night. We share a common wall, and our windows are about 3 meters apart, facing the wall of another neighbor's house that stands just 1 meter away from ours. So their voices ricocheted off that wall and came into my bedroom through the window. I had no rest at night for more than a month. Once, I heard the wife telling her husband not to talk so loudly lest he disturb me. Instead of lowering his voice, he cursed me in absentia. One day, I asked them not to make noise at night. When I saw that my request was not complied with, I recorded their voices, bought speakers specifically for that purpose, and played the recording back loudly while they were asleep. This measure had no satisfactory effect either. Then I downloaded a refrigerator hum and played it again when they were sleeping. But this attempt, too, proved futile. One night, I called him and told him he wasn't compatible with the neighborhood and that it would be reasonable for him to move elsewhere. In response to my advice, he cursed me and the entire neighborhood. An hour later, he called me back and told me to come out to the street and face him. I was out of the city, and it took me an hour to get there. Enough time for him to prepare for the rendezvous. He and his friend tried to punch me, but I fended them off by swinging a knife without wounding either of them. Then my rival pulled out an extendable truncheon and started beating me with it. At the same time, 3 men got out of a car and began throwing stones at me. Thank God the stones struck my limbs and ribs, not my head. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to run home, load my pneumatic gun, and make them flee. After that, I put glue into the keyhole of their gate to prevent them from getting in, and splashed the wall below their windows with diesel, so the smell would offend them if they returned. 2 days after the fight, my neighbor told me they had come at night with flashlights, climbed over the wall to avoid my attention, and taken their belongings away. Why didn't you go to the police? I did, but they told me at the police station that I should have called the patrol. They would have come, made a report, and submitted it to the court, but it would take forever for the court to settle the dispute. While we are talking, a beggar wearing dark glasses and holding a cane, guided by a little boy, approaches our booth. He spreads a piece of cloth on the asphalt, kneels on it, and cries out, "Dearest folks, brothers and sisters, uncles and aunts, sons and daughters, Providence has punished my haggard and emaciated body with blindness. My hands are trembling and my legs shaking. Curses have struck me and my sins have rebounded upon me. My elderly parents, my wife, and my underage children are forsaken by God, doomed to slow death. They are cold. They are hungry. They are sick. They have no shelter. Kind people, take pity on a poor wretch, and God will bless you for showing mercy to a miserable cripple." I go up to the beggar, hold out the alchemist, and say, "I know you can see. Take this book, read it, and you'll make a fortune. Please don't come here anymore. Your piercing voice disturbs me. When I hear it, my blood freezes in my veins. He takes the book silently and leaves. As soon as he is gone, we hear voices over the walkie-talkie. Peace at Alpha, Peace at Vedzisi, Peace at Romeo, Peace at Roni. A routine check for the security guard's alertness. I take our transceiver, say, Peace at Sakura, and hand it to my colleague, saying, I can't stand this miserable life anymore. I'm going back overseas. May peace be with you, my friend. Adieu. It is just my fault, nobody else's. It was I who established contact with evil, willing to perceive the dark side of the world. It was I who wanted to destroy the temple and then rebuild it, to die and resurrect, an extremely ambitious desire, unconscious of the disastrous results. I sowed the seeds of evil in the soil of my own mind and body. Now, I'm harvesting the ugly crop. My soul is exhausted. My body is in pain. There is a vast blank in my mind, but I will make it fruitful. Abundance will replace the void. I've determined so. I'm starting a journey through the layers of my brain to depict the world reflected in my mind. Mind, the shrine of words, so powerful, especially rhymed ones. They are beautiful. I love all of them. Every syllable, every sound is precious to me. They are creations of the Almighty and adopted sons and daughters of mine. I feel blissful for having stirred up my long-dormant creativity. It is picking up speed. It is getting exciting. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bang, bang, bang. Heart is beating. Bang, bang, bang. Up and down, to and fro. Move it back and move it forth. 1, 2, 3, 4. Tick, tick, tick. Time is passing. Tick, tick, tick. Push it further, push it hard. Get it soon and get it done. Lips to lips, breasts to chest. We are having time sex. Sex is great. Sex is fun. We're making quick love. Brazilian girl Andrea, whom I found through an ad in the Village Voice after Monica disappointed me by revealing she was a transsexual, is unfairly dismissing me from her boudoir after only half an hour, even though I paid her $200 for a full hour of her company. To be honest, she is not worth that amount, despite her firm bust and curvy figure. She's awkward in handling the phallus. Andrea seems to be a beginner. Now I'm on the street floating in a dark sea of loneliness and desperation. It is deep and mortifying, gnawing at my flesh and sucking my blood. Andrea's scent still lingers around me when Abeba's image suddenly flashes in my mind. We are in a church, sitting side by side on a pew. She is reading the Psalms. Her bare shoulder brushes against mine by chance. It sends a thrilling current through me. I take her hand and squeeze it gently. The feeling of her smooth, soft skin and long, delicate fingers carries me to heaven. She looks at me and smiles, a brilliant, gentle smile. Her eyes betray pleasure and desire. But decency restrains the emotion. She quickly withdraws her hand, places the book of Psalms on my lap, and advises me to read it. What I see is only a blur of letters. All I hear is the throbbing of my heart. The black goddess has captured my attention. She has conquered my heart. My watch shows 11 p.m. I am on a train going to Coney Island from Midtown Manhattan. The wagon is almost empty. Only a young couple have taken a corner seat. The girl is sitting on the boy's lap. His left hand encircles her waist. The right one rests on her knee. Her brown hair falls in waves over her dainty shoulders. Her feet hover above the floor. She is petite. The front cut of her paisley dress reveals the halves of her smooth ivory breasts. They're small and round, like apples, so closely fitted within the garment that the creator's finishing touch, 2 miniature rosebuds, cannot help embossing their lovely shape on the fabric. A tiny light brown mole near her left nipple makes her bosom even more enticing. Her lips are fleshy, though small and childish. Her almond-shaped, jet-black eyes, shaded by long curling eyelashes, gaze at the boy. She leans toward him and they begin to relish each other's lips. I avert my eyes, wait for the next stop, and change the wagon. The veins of his neck dilate. Blood rushes to his face, coloring it purple like beets. He paces to and fro rapidly, bulging his large eyes, making them seem even larger, and gestures angrily with an open hand, bending and jerking his arm toward the floor as if chopping something, while talking violently to someone over the phone about somebody else. Reviling and threatening the subject of his discourse in absentia, while Jamal is raging, I observe people leaving a nightclub across the street, the very place I used to visit long time ago to hunt for women. Heaven is its name. It is located in a Russian neighborhood, which is why mostly Russians come here. Citizens, legal residents, and illegal aliens drink the same beverages, breathe the same air, and dance on the same floor together. Even though it is small, I've seen more beautiful girls there than in many large Manhattan clubs. Latino women are enchanting for their wild beauty and deeply passionate earthly nature, often accompanied by unrefined curvaceousness, some of their erogenous parts a little too large, round and projected. So titillating to men, especially African American and Latino males. Asian women are the cutest for their baby faces, which inspire tender, amorous feelings mingled with fatherly affection. Their monolid eyes, tiny mouths and noses, round childish cheeks, little chins, miniature ears, and raven dark straight hair sometimes haunt me. I am very sensitive to women of any race and nationality if they are ladylike. As to womanliness, Russian females are champions. Sudden silence and the smell of weed dispel my thoughts. I turn away from the open window of the car service office and see Jamal's already composed face. He hands me a marijuana cigarette. I take 3 long puffs and put it out. Just 3, never more, if I don't want to faint. I've overdosed several times before, and each experience was equally horrible. It's like your body implodes and your soul drowns in the blood of its own flesh. But death doesn't come, because the soul is immortal. The raging sea of fear keeps besetting you from all sides. You want to call out for help, but realizing the futility of the attempt, you surrender yourself to this vortex of seemingly eternal horror. Then comes the climax, and the ensuing loss of consciousness. But if I don't overdose, the effect of this wondrous drug is awesome. Just 3 puffs of smoke create an imaginary sea inside my feet, sending small, peaceful, smooth waves through my veins and nerves up toward my heart and brain. No matter how deep my depression or how intense my anguish, those waves wash away all the foul, illusory parasites tormenting my body and mind. I remember once being on the verge of jumping from a window out of agony and despair when my roommate knocked at my door, preventing me from carrying out the deed. Then, suddenly and luckily, the idea of smoking weed flashed across my mind, and within minutes, I was standing before a mirror, smiling at my own reflection for no apparent reason. Now I'm beaming at Jamal, who, himself a polar opposite of the sight he presented just a few minutes ago, regards me in turn with a relaxed, insouciant air and a faint smile tinted with a barely perceptible blend of cynicism, good humor, and sarcasm. "How come you're not in bed sleeping?" he asks me. "I wish I were. In 6 hours I've got to be back at work. But libido is active, harassing me. Yeah, man, the guy's a giant thorn in the ass. We gotta fix it somehow, but it's not gonna be easy. The kind of person he seems to be, we'll have to go to a lot of trouble to curb his tongue. You know I can't boast of having a high forehead, but his is twice as low. It's been just 3 days since he moved into our room, and already he's unsettled me so much that—" I said libido, not veto, I interject. "What? There's another one?" "No, don't worry. So far, there are just 3 of us in the room." Libido is not a person's name. It means sexual energy. "Ah, I see. You never miss a chance to impress and embarrass me with your erudition. You could have simply said you wanted a woman, couldn't you? So you wasted your hard-earned money on a whore again, right? You need a girlfriend, man. A girlfriend. Go to a pub or a nightclub and find one. I've tried it a few times, but without success. Women like me at first sight, but there's something about me that repels them once they get to know me a little better. Besides, I can't dance. Once I somehow miraculously managed to do it, but then regretted it. Why? It was during my first stay in the United States. You know, there's an arch between the two halls of heaven. I was very drunk and misjudged its height. So when I threw my partner up, she hit her head against it. The sound was horrible. It haunted me for a while afterwards. I felt so sorry but couldn't do anything except apologize and kiss her head many times, in front of the security guards. Then, remorseful and mortified, I went to Coney Island Beach to commune with the ocean. But you should have felt my frustration when, after a whole day's toil, trying to hook up with a beautiful girl, a young guy appeared out of nowhere and asked me for help. It turned out he was gay and looking for a partner. His lust was so naked it made me angry. You know I'm as straight as an arrow. Then I felt deeply sorry for him and was about to say I'd pray for him to find the man of his dreams, but I got scared of fire and brimstone raining down on my poor head and just wished him good luck in his pursuit of happiness. Cannabinoids in his brain, amplifying the effect of my words, Jamal again proves his uncanny ability to turn his face into a mesh of beats, exposing 29 teeth, 3 of them missing, in various colors, silver, gold, white, and black and white. He explodes into convulsive laughter, slapping his knees, repeating phrases from what I've just said, his body jerking through a series of contortions. While my countryman is splitting his sides, I recall another of my unlucky encounters with the fair sex. A few years ago, I met an American girl in Georgia, a friend of mine. They were both scientists, and I was helping them with research. She was of average height and slightly chubby, with pinkish-white skin and blue eyes. Her hair was light brown, her features straight, her lips full, quite attractive at a glance, but lacking feminine grace and delicacy. Back then, not many foreigners visited Georgia, so even though Joanna wasn't my type, she intrigued me as something exotic. All my efforts to start dating her in Tbilisi were fruitless, but fortune smiled on me here in America, and one evening I went out with her for dinner. Still, goddammit, that turned out to be my first and last rendezvous with her. Why? Again, my awkwardness. I made several blunders. What blunders? I complained to her that I had left my dear old friends back in Georgia and been forced to make new ones, and that those companions were not too presentable, to say the least. Then I told her what one of them had done in a nightclub where he worked as a security guard. He put an ice cube between a dancing girl's buttocks and made her jump up and down until she got rid of it. Of course, he was fired immediately. Tell me who your friend is, and I'll tell you who you are. What would she have thought of me? What was another mistake? To stress his not being from the category of the unpresentable, Jamal decides to practice his poor French without fear of feeling embarrassed if he makes mistakes, knowing my knowledge of the language is not enough to notice them. I said to her I wasn't of a very high opinion of Jews because they hold money in too high a regard, and that they are condescending, sometimes rude and arrogant, toward other nations. You know, they believe they are the chosen people. She turned out to be Jewish? Yeah. What else? The last and worst was my failure to recognize her when she returned to the table after going to the restroom. What do you mean? Jamal switches to our native tongue. It was dark in the restaurant, but not so dark as to make it impossible to recognize a person you're having dinner with. My deranged mind simply couldn't recognize her and took her for a waitress. What did you say to her? I said we were okay and didn't want anything. And what did she say to you? Nothing. We sat in silence for a couple of minutes. Then we both pretended nothing embarrassing had happened and went on conversing for a few more minutes before going home. Very strange. I thought it strange too, until I later found out by chance that she was a lesbian, When she returned from the restroom, she didn't look like herself. She seemed transformed inwardly into a man. Her features were the same, but her expression was disturbingly different. Later, I met another of the species. Oh, really? Not long ago, I worked as a security guard in a jewelry store on Madison Avenue. They had a model girl there, of Greek and French origin, a stunning beauty who turned heads wherever she went. She showed customers how the jewelry looked on a female body. I couldn't help observing a strange pattern in her daily behavior. Every day, without exception, she looked naturally beautiful and feminine before noon, and repulsive like a raven in the afternoon. It wasn't only because of the makeup she used. No, even her demeanor, voice, and inner nature seemed to change. She too was a lesbian. I was told later, after I no longer worked there, that she had flirted with every new security guard, and I was no exception. She took pleasure in turning them on and then ignoring them. Once, when I complained about the hot weather, she told me she liked to sweat. I divined this perverse streak of hers early on and used her own method to torment her. In the morning, I would honor her with special attention, pay compliments, and admire her beauty. In the afternoon, I treated her as an ordinary girl, or ignored her altogether. Playing on her self-conceit, on her inflated, vainglorious ego, gradually led her to hate me. She wasn't the only person who detested me, though. I was an abomination to all the staff. Why? They all had both common and individual reasons to hate me. One common one might have been my nationality. You know, they consider all the former Soviet nations as Russians. They're old enemies from the Cold War. Another reason was my opinion of the jewelry business in general, and that store in particular, one of the top among its competitors. I once said during a lunch conversation with a janitor that the shop and its staff served mammon. When she asked me what mammon was, I showed her its meaning from the Collins Dictionary. Riches or wealth regarded as a source of evil and corruption. Within a couple of hours, that definition, with its brand new context, had spread by word of mouth throughout the store. By late afternoon, I was already honored to hear interjections like madman, insane, and Mr. Nuts. Why did you say that? You could have anticipated their reaction. Said, I didn't care, because I knew they'd fire me anyway. What else did they dislike you for? There were 4 salespeople in the shop, serving customers in turn. Even though they got just a 3% commission on each sale, they made a lot of money, since the prices were exorbitant. Tens and hundreds of thousands, even millions. Once, a man approached the door of the store. He didn't look like a potential buyer, but he was decently dressed and looked like an average Joe. Refusing him entry would have been unfair and improper on my part, so I let him in. To my embarrassment, as soon as he crossed the threshold, he took 2 small twigs out of his overcoat pockets and, holding one in each hand, started walking around the store. He went up to every single vitrine, tapping the twigs together and making strange patterns of motion with them. I later heard he had visited nearly all the neighboring shops. At this moment, Jamal bursts out laughing again. Of course, one salesperson, a lady, missed her turn. This meant she lost her chance to make a substantial amount of money. What else could she have felt towards me, if not bitterness? There was another salesperson, a middle-aged man of Dutch and Jewish origin. He had translucent skin and a habit of mocking people and then feeling delighted about it. Once he overheard me saying that, for some reason, I could get along with colored people better than with white Caucasians. He didn't like it and expressed his discontent by saying aloud, as if to himself, but clearly for me to hear, "Well, we don't like whites." I think he didn't consider me white enough to belong to his race. 2 of the male staff were homosexuals. One of them was the manager, a Greek born and raised in Brazil. He was of average height, slim, slightly hunched, with salt and pepper curly hair, a mustache, and light reddish-brown skin. Always neatly dressed, and as flawless as the diamonds he sold, he required everyone to look impeccable. He used to come close to the door of the shop, and pretending to be watching passers-by, would roll his calm, crystal-clear blue eyes towards me. "Ha ha! He fell in love with you?" "No, he inspected my face in detail to make sure I was shaved perfectly clean, without a single hair missed. He also made sure I smelled fresh. Americans worship the body. They observe hygiene religiously. One morning, I didn't have enough time to take a shower because I had overslept. It didn't pass unnoticed and uncommented on in my hearing. I usually allowed such examinations to be carried out, but whenever by chance our eyes met, he would bat his curling eyelashes, fold his Cupid's bow lips into a coquettish smile, and walk away. "You rejected his love advances and fell out of favor with him, didn't you? Ha 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 ha! I can't take it anymore. Man, you're killing me!" With these words, Jamal breaks into another laughing fit. "No, it wasn't like that. Once we happened to be talking about homosexuals, and I said I neither liked nor disliked them. Since that moment, he never missed a chance to mock or humiliate me. One day, after a downpour, the basement of the store was flooded. When I was helping them pump out the water and clean the place, he told me I would make a good wife. Once he called me a bastard. They all taunted and derided me, but I endured the jibes because I didn't want to quit the job until the head of security returned from vacation. That would have been a betrayal. When you do or say something wrong or inappropriate, people react in different ways according to their nature. Some make fun of you, others admonish you, and yet others feel sorry for you and subtly hint at your shortcoming to avoid offending you. To measure people's virtues and vices, I sometimes purposely do something wrong or inappropriate to provoke such reactions. This time, though, the purpose of my experiment was different. I wanted the jewelers to feel embarrassed. To achieve that, my friend, I bought a vivid green checkered suit and a yellow-blue floral tie in Harlem. You know, this kind of attire may suit black men, but it looks ridiculous on white men. The next morning, I stood by the glass door of the shop like an African parrot or an Indian peacock in a showcase. The exclamations I elicited from the staff were, "Holy cow! Oh my God! Jesus Christ! Goodness gracious! God help us!" and such like. They all, more or less, referred to God or supernatural powers, but it was to no avail. God abandoned the infidels that day. I had firmly decided not to move an inch from my post, and all the more so because I had smoked marijuana to fortify my determination. I didn't even take a lunch break. My tenacity was rewarded. Soon I began to reap its fruits. Some pedestrians stopped to look at me. I was over the moon whenever some of them, pretending to be customers, came into the store to take a closer look at me. Jamal is now rolling on the floor, but I continue. That was already too much. They might have called a conference the next day, on Sunday, to work out a solution, because Monday turned out to be fatal for me. 15 minutes before closing time, when the salespeople started pulling out the jewelry from the vitrines and stashing it away in safes, a woman came up to the door and tried to walk in, despite my telling her the store was closed. I blocked her way with my body and was going to gently persuade her to leave when I heard footsteps and the voice of our saleswoman behind me. Her words and the tone in which she pronounced them made such an impression on me that I instantly realized the two women knew each other well, and I automatically stepped aside to let them meet. The visitor took the chance and walked toward the center of the room where the saleslady stood. That meant my fiasco. According to our security procedures, no one could be allowed into the shop after the jewelry had begun to be removed from display. The next day, I received an official notification of my dismissal from the job. What did your boss tell you when he came back from vacation? Of course, he wasn't happy about what had happened, but being a Georgian, he understood the reasons for my incompatibility with the staff. When I took the job, he assumed I had enough flexibility and resilience to handle it, since I had already worked in the same capacity in other stores. He had warned me, though, that I would need to act, he himself being a great actor. Is he a former sportsman, a policeman, or maybe a military man? He was just a karateka back in Georgia. By the way, he's good-looking, tall and athletic, with a handsome face, a charming smile, and confident, pleasant manners. He dresses well and always follows the latest fashion. Even though his English is far from perfect, he knows exactly what to say, when and where to say it, to whom and in what tone, when to shriek and when to roar, when to smile and when to scowl, when to be condescending and when to be humble, for the best possible effect. Men respect and envy him. Women admire him. He's not only a talented actor, but also a skillful director, if what I've heard is true. They say he once staged an attempted robbery. One morning, when he was alone in the shop, two people attacked him and hit him on the head with a blunt metal object. But he fought them off. Soon after that assault, the company's security budget was increased considerably. In 10 years, he worked his way up from being an illegal immigrant, working as a busboy, to becoming the head of security at one of the world's top jewelry houses. He also runs his own security company now. I think he's already a millionaire. In short, he is Quachi. Yeah, in some ways. Oh, you've read the book? Yes, I have. I'm not quite as bookish as you, but not ignorant either. Too much reading is harmful for the mind. You think so? I don't think. I see. You're an example of an unbalanced mind, always pensive and talking like a book. You may be right. Perfectionists can't be normal. We'd better get back to what you were talking about, or else we'll end up arguing again. So it was then that you began working at the warehouse, wasn't it? No, it wasn't. I was transferred to another shop right across the street, a high-end boutique selling one of the best Italian brands, the most beautiful of all the stores I've worked in. It's a 6-story building. On the first floor, they have unisex perfumes and accessories. Menswear is on the second. The third and fourth floors hold women's wear. The fifth accommodates a sewing workshop, and the offices are on the sixth. The furniture is luxurious and harmonizes perfectly with the mahogany paneling and the oak checkerboard parquet. The air is always filled with faint, exquisite fragrances. The shop is like a festival of colors, patterns, and textures. They seem to show off and challenge each other through presenting themselves in the form of garments made from various textiles, chiffon and cashmere scarves, cotton and velvet shirts, denim jackets, crepe skirts, silk handkerchiefs, what else? Wool, linen, and tweed suits, leather and suede shoes and handbags. Wait a bit, you been there? I don't know which store you mean, but I've been to all the shops on Madison and Fifth Avenues. Oh, are you? As you can see, I can't follow fashion for obvious reasons, but I understand and am interested in it. Being a former artist and an ex-husband of a fashion designer. We studied together at the Academy of Arts. Oh, you're an artist? Wow, what a surprise. I would never have thought you were an artist. No, I'm not. I was once, but not anymore. Were you a fashion designer, man? No, my specialty was artistic processing of wood and furniture design, says Jamal, smiling. Do you have photos of your works? No, I don't. I never photographed them, but I still have an original. You've seen it. I've seen it? Yeah, this one. He takes out from his bosom a hilariously big, hand-carved wooden icon, about the size of an adult man's palm, of Gabriel Urgabadze, a monk canonized by the Georgian Orthodox Church as Saint Gabriel, confessor and fool for Christ. You always wear it even when taking a shower. I don't know how it happened, but once I saw it lying on your bed and examined it, I think it's an exquisite piece of work, and the likeness is remarkable. Thank you. You may not be a connoisseur of art, but you seem to have good taste. I'm not saying it just because you like my work. I saw your eyes light up when you mentioned colors and patterns. I can tell you love elegant clothes. Your body type and looks truly deserve high-end brands. But unfortunately, people of our social class can never afford them. Do you remember the years '94 and '95 in Tbilisi? No gas, no electricity, bonfires in the streets, wood stoves in homes. You couldn't even buy bread without standing in line for hours. I dropped my university studies and went to Moscow to seek my fortune, but there too I barely eked out a living. When my boss heard that I had decided to go back home, he unexpectedly, almost capriciously, took me to Gum and bought me the finest and most expensive winter outfit. I hadn't worn it even an hour when I sold it to a second-hand dealer in Tbilisi. I sold it not only to pay my sister's tutors — she was preparing for her medical university entrance exams that year — but also because I simply couldn't bring myself to wear it. Donning fine clothes amid such abject poverty would have been neither appropriate nor morally right, to say nothing of the risk of being robbed. I wouldn't have worn them even under different circumstances, for though I like to attract attention as much as anyone, I don't like to do so through clothing. Clothes can only slightly enhance one's appearance. A naked deer is much more beautiful than a dressed-up camel. Exactly. I may love donkeys and zebras, but I can only admire horses. Since adolescence, I've been trying to understand the laws of beauty, why one thing is pleasant and another repulsive, and what makes something else merely mediocre. Perfect symmetry and correct proportion, along with the right combination of colors, account for beauty, and the amplitude of deviation from them produces a spectrum of imperfection, a continuum ranging from the most beautiful to the ugliest. If God created man in his own image, he must resemble us and stand at the summit of this succession. And since a continuum is a sequence in which adjacent elements are not perceptibly different, those standing closest to him must be almost as beautiful as he is. Yet, in my conception, God is immeasurably more beautiful than the most handsome man or the most gorgeous woman who ever lived. I would compare him to the sun and us to the planets moving around it. From the world's major religions, only Christianity and Hinduism are founded on the belief that God incarnated himself in man. The miracles performed by Jesus Christ and Krishna were often not enough for people to believe they were divine. They must not have been vastly superior to humans in appearance, in beauty. Otherwise, they might have been universally acknowledged in their lifetimes. Krishna's skin was dark blue, the color of rain-filled thunderclouds. Excuse me, mon ami, but I smoke weed to relax and have fun, not to rack my brain trying to solve theological conundrums. Let's return to fashion in the boutique. What was it like working there? If you want to curse someone, wish on him the job of a security guard on Madison Avenue. I used to wake up at 5 a.m. to get from Brighton Beach to work by 7 and let the janitors in. One of them, a Colombian girl, was so voluptuous and tantalizing, with such a smooth, mellifluous feminine voice, that she could probably cure an impotent man just by talking. They didn't speak English, and I didn't understand Spanish, but imbecile is imbecile in both languages. And I have no idea why one morning that quintessence of womanliness used the word, apparently, to refer to me while talking to her colleague. Ha ha ha! At 10 I'd open the shop and stand there until 7 p.m. If it was the first day after a day off, I was fine until noon. In the afternoon, tiredness would start slowly creeping up on me, but at 2 o'clock, the lunch guy would come to my aid. That half-hour relief refreshed me, and I felt all right for a couple of hours. In the last 3 hours of the workday, however, fatigue underwent a slow metamorphosis and gradually transformed into suffering, torment, torture, and agony. Pain in the feet and blood stagnation from immobility and torpor. Not only that, nothing could alleviate the nagging pain in my joints and spine, not even the smartly dressed, beautiful and handsome girls and boys of different races and national backgrounds. Were any of the girls single? Not a single one. All of them had boyfriends, but that didn't stop them from flirting with me, the only young straight guy working in the shop. There were 4 more heterosexuals among the staff, but they were middle-aged or older. 2 African Americans in charge of shipping, a Russian tailor, and Christian, a salesman. The rest of the male sales staff, 4 people, were gay. I wasn't hired directly by the shop, so equilibrium had been strictly maintained. The equal employment opportunity principle had been observed. Law may regulate people's behavior and sometimes even their speech in a country where there is freedom of speech, but it cannot affect their heart and inner nature. Do you know which is the purest and most fundamental kind of love? I guess erotic homosexual love? Ooh, come on. Parental love? You're close. Parental love is also unconditional, but not completely free of selfishness. People love their own children more than others. Then which one is it? Love of humankind, the attraction and sympathy among human beings. Vaishnavas and Jainists would go further and say love between all living entities, but I don't agree with them, because animals and even plants prey on each other, and we humans slaughter and eat some of the fauna. So I was going to say that when you don't have enough of this kind of love for someone, you can still respect them. If you are not able to respect them, you can at least tolerate them. But those 4 colleagues couldn't endure Chris just because his body and mind were in harmony with the laws of nature, like the majority of natural phenomena. Of course, there are anomalies in flora and fauna, but they are rare. I remember him once being full of righteous indignation over a sentiment expressed to him by one of the Uranians, that straight guys are pussies. The management and the directorate of the company were predominantly homosexual, so the Quaternion felt free to try to turn the shop into a space where what was normal would be considered abnormal and vice versa. Namely, there are 9 women working at the store, but only 3 of them attracted my attention. They were young, cute, and beautiful. The fact that they all were of different races enhanced their charms. I was older than they were, and my age and experience attracted them. I've described them in a sketch. Let me see. I have it on my mobile phone. Here it is. Abeba is Afro-American, even on the frostiest winter mornings. The scorching breath of the Sahara seems to blow in as she steps into the building. Yet she never leaves me helplessly dizzy with the hot scent of the sands. Oases, too, are there. 2 smiling emerald green eyes that sparkle above the high dunes of her cheekbones, divided by an almost straight, slightly aquiline nose, and domed with a smooth, lofty forehead crowned by raven dark curls, a nest of pitch-black snakes. Her good morning splits a mellow bluish-black plum to reveal the glittering rows of snow-white pearls within. Instead of taking the elevator directly to the 3rd floor where she works, she crosses the room toward the stairs leading to the 2nd. She does it purposely, to torment me. Her poise is not acquired, but native, instinctive, divine. She walks with the grace of a feline creature. I adore the light, measured fall of her small feet, the fluid play of her long, slender limbs, the voluptuous sway of her hips, her firm, tantalizing heart-shaped peaches, the defined waist, the round, apple-like breasts, the moderately broad shoulders, the long, delicate neck, the small, well-formed ears. At the turn, just before the stairs, she often pauses, pretending to adjust a handbag in the vitrine or rearrange a scarf on a table, and thus grants me the pleasure of admiring her lovely profile and long, sensitive fingers. In summertime, I marvel at the soft modeling of her muscles beneath the flawless sheen of her ebony skin. Her encounter with a colleague descending the stairs resembles a clash of aesthetics. Even their smiles carry the tension of rivalry as they look at each other. Olivia's charm lies in her aristocratic composure and the natural modesty of her bearing. Her tall figure is athletic, yet slender, curving only where nature insists. Her limbs are long and straight, her bust small, her neck swan-like. Her shoulder-length hair, bright yellow with a faint white shimmer, is like the sun of an early August morning. At times, it brushes her milky, slightly dimpled cheeks. She never wears makeup. Her thin, fair eyebrows arch like rainbows above her oval, bottomless cerulean eyes fringed with long, fair lashes. Her high forehead leans proudly over a thin, straight nose. The exquisitely shaped ears, with their small lobes, are perfectly proportioned to her face. She's beautiful, shy, and adorable, like a young roe deer. And when she speaks, her lips move like the petals of an unfolding rosebud, stirred by a gentle wind. Playing with the gleam of her perfectly aligned teeth, those delicate chips of white jade. How come you've been forgetting things lately, George? Oh, really? What do you mean? Can you guess it? Asks Olivia playfully. Let me see. There's nothing I can think of. Oh, come on, stop pretending. All the staff are making fun of your new caprice. Some say you resent your job and social status and give them an attitude. Others think you're teasing the manager to get her attention, says she with an enchanting smile. First of all, I have no status whatsoever in this country, being an undocumented alien. Second, why do those know-alls waste their precious time selling clothes? Why don't they open psychoanalysts' consulting rooms? They could make more money. After all, you stiff, haughty, and judgmental New Yorkers worship the dollar. I wonder why the $1 bill says, "In God we trust." It would be truer if it said, "In this we trust," on one side. Again, then you'll claim you're free of attitude. You can't help being sarcastic. How did the US dollar wrong you, George? She keeps smiling, fascinating me. You should have seen how amiable Julian was to a customer yesterday, all honey and nectar, melting like ice cream and wielding his brilliant smile to the best possible effect. Until it became clear the man wouldn't buy anything. Then, when the customer left, he said he should have spat into the glass of water he had brought him on request. Not all salespeople behave and think like Julian. Maybe, but most people living in the big cities of the U.S., especially the coastal ones, have a waiter smile, a salesperson smile. You won't see that fakery, that falsehood, in post-Soviet countries. It's an attribute of capitalism, deeply ingrained in Western society. When I first came from Georgia to America and walked through Times Square, seeing so many smiling faces, I was surprised, even shocked. At first, I thought I had lived in a country where the whole nation was unhappy, which, of course, was partly true because of its recent wars and almost non-existent economy. But I could still remember the peaceful and prosperous Soviet era. Even then, people didn't walk the streets of Tbilisi with smiling faces. It isn't in our culture to smile without a reason. Otherwise, I don't understand how all of Eastern Europe and part of Asia, the expanse of the Soviet Union and its satellites, could all have negative personalities. Lately, I've come to the unfortunate conclusion that the Westerner's smile is fake, forced by the circumstances created in capitalist societies. Are you writing a monograph on the capitalistic smile? Says Olivia, and laughs, and her laugh is a blooming garden in spring sunshine. As to your first question, you probably meant the awnings, right? Finally, you came to the point. Olivia, I checked today's weather forecast this morning. There will be neither rain nor sunshine. It's going to be overcast all day. So, what are we putting the awnings down for? The weather in New York is as fickle as local women, George. Sue, coming upstairs from the basement, joins us in the conversation, and while she and I are exchanging remarks, Olivia steps aside to take a look at Sue's petite, ideally proportioned figure, then unfolds and refolds one of the paisley scarves displayed on a table for customers. Was it busy yesterday, Sue? She asks her. Very busy. Thanks for helping, Olivia, but never mind. George and I can handle folding them neatly. Thank you for covering me. You can go back to your department now if you want. Even though it's not his job, he will help little Sue, won't you, George? Keep what I told you between us, says Olivia, walking toward the elevator. Okay, Olivia. Little Sue. She should have thought it through before saying it. I hope she'll give it a second thought next time, says Sue resentfully. When she gets angry and scowls, her trained eyebrows bristle, and she looks cute and funny like a little petulant girl. Come on, she didn't mean to offend you. You know how kind-hearted she is. Maybe, but still, I don't like being called Little Sue. Have you read Little Dorrit by Charles Dickens? No. If you had read it, you wouldn't resent being called Little Sue. Little Dorrit is a very kind, caring, and lovable character. Okay, but I'm not Little Dorrit. You're Korean-American Little Sue Song. Oh, shut up, alien, says Sue, and a couple of blackberries playfully peeping from the almond-shaped eye cuts conspire with cherry lips, shaping into a flirtatious smile, to touch my fragile, vulnerable heart. The strings of ivory beads come to their aid to bewitch it altogether. Could you fold them more neatly, George? I'll try, but I've never been good at doing neat and tidy jobs. I can't even make my bed properly. I'll show you how to do it. Let me have it, please. Her elegant fingers accidentally touch mine, and I compulsively grasp and squeeze her small, delicate hand. At that moment, hearing footsteps, Sue releases her hand from captivity and quickly turns her head aside to see Sieta, the cashier, coming downstairs. This abrupt motion of her head allows me to see one of her small, beautiful ears. Quite a celebration for me, since they are usually hidden behind her pitch-black straight hair, cut in a bobcat style. George, could you please mind your own job? I'll help Suliko, says Sita. As if Little Sue were not enough, now I've become Suliko. I wonder what's next. Sita and I laugh about it, and then I ask her how she, an Armenian from Iran, knows the name Suliko. I have a Georgian Armenian friend called Suliko. She's a girl, but I know it's a unisex name, like the perfume we're selling. I take my post by the door, search for the Georgian song Suliko on YouTube, and play it. What a lovely song, says Sue when it ends. Truly beautiful. Sita likes it too. What is it about, George? Asks Sue. About the loss of a loved one. Suliko means soulmate. There are several English translations of the lyrics on the internet, including one done by me. Which one do you want? Of course yours. I retrieve it from my Google Drive and read it out. The soulmate. Loved one's grave I sought in vain. Couldn't find it. Was lost to my sight. Wildly sobbing out I cried, "Oh, where are you, my dear soulmate?" In a bush I noticed a rose. Lonely it was, grown on its own. With throbbing heart I asked it straight, "Isn't it you, my darling soulmate?" Hiding itself from blooming dale, nearby perched a nightingale. Tenderly I asked the bird tame, "Isn't it you, O lovely soulmate?" The songster fluttered near the rosebud, touched the flower with beak to caress, and chirped a mournful song of love, as if telling me, yes, yes. As soon as I finish reading, a courier appears at the threshold of the shop, holding a big bouquet of scarlet roses. I let him in. "Can I see Miss Sue Song?" "Bree, it's me. The flowers are for you." "Thank you, sir." "Isn't there a card attached?" "No, there isn't. The sender wants to stay incognito." "Which shop are they from?" "Madison Florists." Sue signs a receipt, and the messenger leaves. "Do you guess who the sender might be?" asks her Sieta. "No idea. I've quarreled with my boyfriend, and we haven't spoken for 2 weeks. I don't think it's him. Maybe he wants to reconcile with you?" I ask her. "In that case, he would attach a card. Why send it incognito?" "He probably wanted to puzzle and then surprise you," supposes Sita. This kind of behavior is not compatible with his personality. In a few minutes, all the staff learn of the news and come one by one to the first floor to see the flowers. The bouquet is so large and Sue is so small that they can see only her head and feet. They are so pretty. How beautiful they are. How lovely. I've never seen such beauty. Wonderful. Awesome. Marvelous. The colleagues exclaim one after another, and Sue's snow-white cheeks turn pink, adding to the beauty of the bouquet. The cash register being in a kind of nook formed in a corner of the room between the elevator shaft and two walls, and I standing in a similar nook on the opposite side of the shaft. There is no eye contact between the cashier and me. Besides, her voice sounds indistinct, partly because of the barrier and also on account of my impaired hearing. In a few minutes, my phone rings. The caller ID is not identified. I answer the call. Hello? Good morning, sir. I'm calling on behalf of Su Song. A flower shop gave us your number, and we'd like to know your name first, and then to thank you for the bouquet. I hang up the phone, but Sieta has already heard it ringing and me saying hello. The sender of the flowers is identified and exposed. His behavior will be classified as misconduct, interpreted as sexual harassment, and strongly condemned. What did Sue say to you? Asks Jamal. Nothing. Only Olivia sympathized with me. She said Sue was persuaded by those 4 salesmen to complain to the manager about my behavior, which she did. But the manager, I must say to her credit, ignored it. When? Was that why you quit the job? Not only that, they required me to do something that went against my principles. What was it? Not letting non-customers use the shop's restroom, even in an emergency. I find that cruel and inhumane. I agree with you. I wouldn't be able to work at such a place either. But what I don't understand is which of the 3 girls you loved. None of them. I only liked them. Well, did you at least date any of them? I went out with Abeba twice. Why only twice? What happened? She's religious. Once we went to a Protestant church, the one she regularly attended. I was the only white person dancing, singing, and clapping among African Americans. Dancing, man? Was it a church or a discotheque? Yes, we can't do such things in the Georgian Orthodox Church. Protestants focus on what Jesus Christ promised his followers: eternal life in paradise, bliss. They celebrate Christ's birth, Christmas, more joyously than Easter, whereas for Orthodox Christians the crucifixion and resurrection hold greater importance. Martyrs, too, are highly venerated. You know, St. George's martyrdom is commemorated twice in Georgia. On the 23rd of November, marking his torture on the wheel, and on the 6th of May, his beheading. Interestingly, the words belief and torture are homonyms in Georgian. This reveals a close relationship between the concepts they represent. Christian believers were often tortured. One can often see mournful and distressed faces in Georgian Orthodox churches, while Protestants dance and sing, like King David of Israel. I found it quite amusing, but I'm not devoutly religious, and generally I find church services very boring. I can't attend them for more than 15 minutes, so I told her I went to church only to be in her company, not out of faith or religious feeling. That was our last rendezvous. My words estranged her. Which of the girls did you like most? I liked them equally. No single race is perfect. Together, they complement one another and create a complete picture. Sometimes, I think God is not one perfect being, nor 3, as Christians believe, but a multitude of imperfect individuals, the whole world taken together and connected by invisible threads. It was then and there that I first wished to have been a rich Muslim, allowed and even encouraged by his faith to have up to 4 wives. Then and there I understood why sultans and shahs shed so much innocent blood. Then and there I quenched my thirst for that kind of aesthetic pleasure derivable only from the peak of creation, the human being. Have you seen the Caucasian mountains from Signagi? They are grand and awe-inspiring, aren't they? But if you are in Kvareli, you can see only a small fraction of them. Similarly, when the relationship between a man and a woman becomes too close, they can no longer see the full range of each other's charms, and soon grow bored. If your dream had come true and you had married them, you wouldn't just have grown bored with them. You'd also have had to satisfy their needs and help them fulfill their ambitions, and they would have turned your life into a grind. I can only partly agree with you, because what you said may be true for most people, but not for all. I see the Caucasus and the Alazani Valley every time I step out onto my veranda. And by the way, I can also enjoy contemplating the fraction you mentioned, but I never get bored of them. Not because they're far away and can be seen in their full beauty, but because I love beauty itself. Perhaps more than, say, my neighbors, who are so preoccupied with their daily chores and problems that they hardly notice it. When people feel frustrated, they tend to think everything is going wrong in their lives, and often even blame those who have nothing to do with their disappointments. Family members, neighbors, relatives, and even mountains and valleys, innocent beauties. I remember once seeing my grandmother moving large stones with a cart. When one of them fell out, she said angrily, "You swine, where the hell are you going?" She animated an inanimate object in her imagination just to vent her anger. You said you wanted to have been a Muslim. Did you really mean it? Yes, I did. Come on, man. How on earth can a Georgian born and raised in Georgia ever wish to be a Muslim? I'm sure you know the history of our motherland better than I do. Maybe. Then you must know well what those followers of the devil did to our ancestors. Throughout history, they persecuted, tortured, and killed those they couldn't subjugate or convert to Islam. And knowing this, you wanted to be a Muslim? It's outrageous. It's treason. Now you scare me. Break. Why? Because you talk like a Muslim. I talk like a Muslim? Exclaims Jamal with boundless indignation. We are not subjects of Saudi Arabia. We are citizens of a democratic state, and its constitution guarantees us the freedom to choose our faith. Nothing can be more free, innermost, and sacred than religious feelings. They cannot be forced or repressed. They can't be hurt either if they are truly religious, because they are spiritual, and the material world has absolutely no influence over them. They can develop or deteriorate only according to a person's own will. It's Islam that enslaves its followers spiritually and prescribes the death penalty for those who reject the faith, on the grounds that apostasy is regarded as equivalent to treason. And still you want to be a Muslim? When did I say I want to be a Muslim? You are not listening to me properly. I said I wanted to become a Muslim. The verb wanted is in the past tense. So you no longer want it, do you? No, I no longer want it because I've already tried it. What do you mean by trying it? I converted to Islam, practiced it for 3 years, and then rejected it. Are you kidding me? No, I'm not. I was even circumcised. Jesus Christ, you are either insane or holy. I am neither of the two. I'm just searching for the truth. Did you pray and observe Ramadan? I tried, but I couldn't always perform the prayers in the prescribed way. Praying 5 times a day and performing ablutions before every prayer requires strict discipline, which I couldn't maintain. In general, I don't like rules and restrictions, but fasting was easier for me than praying. I've come to the conclusion, however, that Ramadan, unlike the Orthodox Christian fast, is harmful to health because believers refrain from food and water during the day and eat and drink at night. How can a person sleep on a full stomach? According to the Vedas, food eaten after sunset cannot be properly digested due to the absence of the sun's energy. Moreover, eating meat during fasting doesn't make sense to me. I believe abstaining from animal food is necessary for the purification of both body and soul. How do you know what's written in the Vedas? Are they translated into English? Yes, they are, but I haven't read a single line of them. I learned what I know from the lectures at a Krishna temple. Are you a Krishna devotee? No, not really. I used to go there regularly on Sundays just to take part in their programs. They began at 3 in the afternoon with a kirtan. At 4, there was a lecture on the Bhagavad Gita, which usually lasted about an hour. Then came a 15-minute Mahamantra meditation, followed by a prasada dinner. After that, they performed Tulasi Arti and then Gaura Arti. The evening always ended with another kirtan. Could you explain those things to me, one by one? And of course, kirtan is the congregational chanting of God's holy names. The Bhagavad Gita is part of the great Sanskrit epic Mahabharata. Maha mantra means the main mantra. Prasada is sanctified vegetarian food prepared for devotees and offered to God with praise and thanksgiving. Tulasi Arti is a service performed for Tulasi, a sacred plant believed to be the earthly manifestation of the goddess Tulasi, an incarnation of Lakshmi. Gora Arti is another ceremony of worship, expressed through singing and dancing before the deities. Did you sing and dance too? I'm not much of a singer or dancer, so I mostly clapped my hands or played the karatalas, a small pair of hand cymbals. That's one of the things I liked about their gatherings. Everyone could take part in some way, according to their own abilities. You were free to sing, dance, or play an instrument, usually the harmonium, mridangam, or karatalas if you had the skill. Even giving a lecture was possible for those advanced in spiritual life. After the talks, there was always time for questions, and sometimes they held seminars during the week. If you were a vegetarian, you could help cook prasada. Serving God and his devotees is considered a great blessing among Vaishnavas. Newcomers often felt as if they'd found a long-lost family. Everyone there was so kind, attentive, and genuinely caring. It seems you liked it. Why didn't you convert to Hinduism? I couldn't accept certain of its dogmas, namely, mandatory vegetarianism and reincarnation. Reincarnation makes sense to me. It makes sense to me too, but not in the way they believe in. In what way then? I can understand reincarnation within a particular species. Human souls can be reborn as human beings only, not as animals or insects as the Vaishnavas believe, because humans alone possess highly developed intelligence and divine consciousness. Animals cannot compose symphonies or write philosophical works. Neither can they pray or comprehend the Logos, the Word of God. Only a human being can walk on 2 feet and keep the torso upright while sitting, standing, and walking. This naturally vertical posture symbolizes man's heavenly aspirations. I agree with you. What about vegetarianism? I think a religion must be universally practicable, regardless of epoch or climatic zone. Hinduism is a climatic religion, which could be followed only in warm countries in the past. Nowadays, thanks to refrigerators and rapid transportation, vegetarian food is available almost everywhere. In January, one can even buy bananas in Siberia, where the air temperature drops to -50 degrees Celsius in winter. But in the Middle Ages, even in warmer countries like Georgia, one couldn't have survived without animal food during enemy invasions or famines. People would have had to eat whatever was available. Once, when I asked the Vaishnavas what they thought about other religions, they said that God gave different nations different religions according to how much truth they were able to receive and retain, also taking into account the era and the climatic conditions of the environment in which they lived. However, it is an obvious and incontrovertible fact that all religions contradict each other, and that within each one there are dissenters and numerous sects. In response to my next question, why the Abrahamic religions allow their followers to eat meat, they said that the original doctrines of these religions forbade animal slaughter, and that the 6th commandment, "Thou shalt not kill," prohibits not only killing people, but also killing animals. In my opinion, if the original doctrines were in force only for a short time and then were distorted by successive generations, it would mean that God's word was lost to us long ago, and humankind has been forsaken, groping in darkness for centuries, a situation God would not have allowed. I think eating meat is not a sin. Rather, it is a consequence of Adam and Eve's sin. Oh, how long did you go to the Krishna temple? I went there regularly for 3 consecutive years, and then occasionally for 7 more. Which means you haven't yet rejected Hinduism decisively, right? Quite true. Vaishnavas are the best people I've ever met in my life. I have bosom friends among them. I was even married to one of them. Oh, really? We didn't love each other when we got married, though. There was only mutual respect and congeniality between us. I loved, and still love, another person. Whom did you love? A Svan girl who was 20 years younger than me. You pervert. She was of legal age, though. Was she also a Vaishnava? No, she was an Orthodox Christian. I first saw her in a church. Those days were the happiest of my life, though tormenting. Why? Didn't she return your love? No, she didn't. When I first met her, I had already been attracted to another girl. I had almost loved her. She was a Vaishnava. Other than your wife? Yeah, other than my ex. Were they beautiful? Yes, both of them were lovely, especially the Svan girl. The other was an exchange student from Lithuania. One day, I was in the National Library writing a love letter to the Lithuanian girl. As soon as I finished the letter and emailed it, I saw the Svan girl. I was shocked by my own feelings. It was so strange to love two girls at the same time. Do you have their photos on your mobile phone? Sure. Here, look. Jamal takes a greedy look at the pictures. Wow, they're both so charming. You have good taste in women. This is the letter I sent her. You can read it if you want. Yes, I do. Thanks for sharing it, says Jamal, and reads the letter aloud. I'm sorry for being so awkward and blunt today, but I didn't sleep enough last night. That might be the reason. I couldn't sleep because I kept thinking about what will happen when you leave, how I could live without you. I fell in love with you the very first moment I saw you. I know I have certain traits you may not like, yet I'm so giddy with love that all I see in you is your lovely face and those deep, childlike eyes. Your smile is like warm sunshine to me, and your bad mood affects me more than bad weather ever could. I don't really care much about any religion or culture. Without you, the Krishna temple would become a bleak house. Nothing makes sense without love. Conflict between man and woman is part of life. No energy is ever yielded without it. We shouldn't be afraid of it, because it's natural. Love, in its turn, heals everything and builds bridges between different cultures and characters. Yes, I am judging, but God judges too. We humans resemble Him in everything, even in making mistakes, if the creation of humankind was one. I've been praying to God for many years to make me the person He wants me to be, and to help me find my love. I lived without love all my life, and what I feel for you now is a huge surge of emotion that will either make me happy or devastate me completely. My feelings are ambivalent. I love both your adult grace and your childlike wonder. You have an absolute hold on me. You are my life. I'm not asking you to reciprocate. I just want you to know how I feel. Did she also reject your feelings? Yes, she did. Poor guy. What about your ex-wife? Why did you get divorced? She couldn't conceive. Maybe the problem was with you? No, it wasn't my fault. She had been married twice before and had never become pregnant. But there were other reasons for the divorce as well. What reasons? She was deeply, devoutly religious, while I was not. And the main reason, of course, was the absence of love between us. I loved her only as a person, not as a woman. Do you still love the Svan girl? Are you sure it wasn't just an obsession? That's what she thought about my feelings, but it wasn't an obsession. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to write verses. Only true feelings can inspire a person. Oh, I didn't know you were a poet. No, I'm not. I've written only a few verses in my life, and all of them were inspired by and dedicated to her. Can I read them? Yes, you can. Jamal reads the poems aloud. The Wasp. When your mom first called you Wasp, she must have hugged you very hard and told you, "My pet and darling, your petulance is not too charming." However, As for me, be it wasp or be it bee, I find your pet name strange, and think it is to be changed. Every time I picture you, I ask myself in great wonder, is she really so grumpy? So bad-tempered and very cranky? No way! It can't be true. Angels from the heaven blue have wings and by no means stings. So meek and so cute as is my sweetie girl, I bet this lovely earth no person ever tread. The little Svan? Beautiful like horizon sun, breath of May and willow's stance. I adore one little Svan, want her to be my pet, my swan. With desire for her I'm burning slowly, and succumb to her great charms wholly. I don't want to believe those cruel folks who tell me, "You fool, abandon vain hopes. Can't you find a co-equal mate? Don't you know she's already engaged? Sooner or later you'll realize for sure your pining heart will have no cure. I pray fervently to the Almighty Great to spare my poor self such a gruesome fate. Beautiful like horizon, sun, breath of May and willow's stance. I adore one little Svan. Want her to be my pet, my swan." They are nice. Did she like them? Yes, she did, especially the wasp. How do you know that? Her grandmother told me so. Oh, you even got to know her grandmother? Yeah, and her grandfather too. I wrote a sketch about how I met them. I'll read it to you. For the first 3 months after the day I first saw her, I had difficulty learning anything about her. Then, by chance, I came to know she studied at the spiritual seminary and found out her name from a tagged photograph posted on its Facebook page. Now that I knew her name, I easily discovered her address with the help of a distant relative who was a retired policeman. Her home was very close to my daily evening walk route, and I found it very strange that I had never met her for quite a number of years. Very soon, I got acquainted with a saleswoman at a grocery store near her home, and gradually insinuated myself into her favor. Once she told me that my beloved one's family owned a cottage in the countryside near Tbilisi city, and that her grandparents, who lived there, had cows and sometimes sold milk products to the store. So one day, I went there and found them easily because only 2 families in the village had cows. I pretended to be looking for a house to rent, to bring my mother and a niece there in the summertime. Her grandmother asked why I didn't want to bring my own wife and children, to which I answered that I wasn't married. Then she asked why I wasn't married. I said I liked young girls who found me too old to marry. She told me she had a beautiful granddaughter, and as she began describing her, I showed her a photograph of my sweetheart on my mobile phone and asked if she meant the girl in the picture. Her reaction was one of utmost surprise. "How come you know her? What's your name?" "My name is George." "Oh, is it you who wrote those verses to her?" "Yes, it's me." She liked them very much. They made her happy. But have you ever spoken to her? "No, I haven't. She avoids me as if I were the plague." "Why?" "Such a silly girl. I shouldn't be telling you this, but she told me she blocked your Facebook account because she thought you looked very ugly after you uploaded your profile picture. Please don't take it offensively. I actually think you're quite attractive. Could you show me that picture of yours?" "Here it is." You see, you are not photogenic at all. But never mind. I will introduce you to her one day. That one day never came, because the sweetie was strongly against our getting to know each other. Her grandmother was the only family member who sympathized with me and supported me. I used to lure the grandfather into a neighbor's house to play billiards with a friend of mine, and I would go to his wife to talk about her granddaughter. Once I learned from her that the darling was staying at a monastery, I bought a bouquet of 40 scarlet roses and asked another friend to deliver it to her. She accepted it, but became so angry that she complained to her uncle, who met me and told me I was to keep my distance from her. I promised I would, but I couldn't keep my word, because I was a slave to my heart. I couldn't dictate what to feel, when, where, or for whom. Thus, going back on my word, I went to the village every summer and stayed there as long as she was there. trying to see her at least from afar, which was enough to make me happy. I loved retracing her footsteps. Over time, I won the hearts of all her neighbors, and accordingly, the distance between us decreased. I even built a volleyball court, hoping one day we would play together on it, but she kept avoiding me. I even began attending certain study courses at the spiritual seminary, hoping to see her in the corridor sometimes. All my endeavors ended with her uncle threatening me with an automatic gun. I gave him another promise not to see her anymore, but broke it again, resuming my trips to the village until she got married. She has a baby girl now, as cute and lovely as she was at that age. Her grandmother once showed me a photograph of her as a baby. Every chance encounter with her in the streets of Tbilisi revives the feeling of love I have nurtured so tenderly. Do you still love her? I think so. You'd better forget her. Why? You won't be able to fall in love again if you keep thinking about her. That's true. When I was 16, I fell in love with a girl 3 years older than me, whom I saw almost every day for just a week, and to whom I spoke only once. She was living at a monastery at the time and was going to become a nun, but she unexpectedly fell in love with a Frenchman, married him, and moved to France. Never seeing her again, I loved her for 7 years. You're a very strange man, George. You'll never get married if you continue like this. You idealize the girls you like, imagine them to be unapproachable, and torment yourself. Come on, man. They're just flesh and blood like you. Nobody is perfect in this material world. Be down to earth and take them for who they are. I stay faithful to my feelings. A loud, impatient-sounding knock disrupts our conversation. I open the door and let in a little bald, skinny man who passes by me with quick, aggressive steps and stops abruptly in front of my collocutor. I bet you're wondering now what I'm doing in the office at 5 a.m., aren't you? Quite true. Could you tell me now why I pay you almost $400 at the end of every week? You underpay me $375 every Friday afternoon for the job I'm doing in an excellent way. Despite your promise to give me a raise, you have the impertinence to tell me I underpay you after getting 3 warnings from me, your employer? I took those warnings as jokes. Jesus Christ, jokes, man? Do you hear his impudence, sir? The little man turns toward me. Jesus Christ? Ha ha ha! Don't forget you're Jewish, man, says Jamal to his boss, who ignores his remark. I'm sorry, but I really cannot say anything, being an outsider and not understanding the situation, I answer. What is your name, sir? George. Mr. George, you don't need to be an insider to understand the situation. If you were sober, you would understand the absurdity of his demand for a raise. Sober, sir? Do you think we're drunk? I don't think so, but I see how stoned you are. Stoned? Yes, stoned. I see you don't understand the meaning of the word. He means we're high, Jamal tells me. I smelled the weed on the street just before I came in here, says the man and dials a number on his phone. Do you know whom I'm calling? No idea, says Jamal. I'm calling you, Monsieur Jamal. Jamal looks at the office phone and drops his jaw. Ah, shit, god damn it. It needs to be recharged. Do you know how long I've been trying to contact you? 2 hours. A full 2 hours. I'm so sorry, Eliasar. I beg your pardon. There will be no more pardon. You're dismissed, Monsieur Jamal. Adieu. Part 2. Good morning, Moisha. Good morning, George. Good morning. But the morning is hardly good. Why? What happened? I've been making calls for almost 2 hours, and nobody's even biting. The girls haven't gotten a single order either. Everybody says a blunt no. It's a disaster, George. A disaster. Oh, you scared me so much. I thought something bad had happened. Never mind. The day's just begun. The afternoon may turn out to be lucky. I hope so, George. I hope so. You always encourage me, and I'm very grateful for that. But I've been losing a lot of customers over the last 2 years. Next month, I'm gonna move to a smaller warehouse. By the way, why are you late today? What happened? Did you hang out in a bar or nightclub last night? Nightclub. Did you hook up with anybody? I didn't. And then I wasted a lot of money on a whore. How much? $200. Yeah, that's a lot. But believe me, a wife costs a lot more than that. And if you have children, you spend yet more on them, right? Absolutely. But you get repaid with love and care instead. That's true, but not always, adds Moisha after a few moments of hesitation. They give me a hard time every once in a while. I bet they made you angry yesterday, too. How do you know it? Sarah looks sullen today. For God's sake, tell me, George, if you were married and your wife could cook a chicken deliciously, would you still go to a restaurant with her to eat the same food? And if you owned a decent house, would you spend a night with your wife in a hotel room in the same town you live in? That's not an easy question to answer. Firstly, because I was married only for 9 months, and secondly, because the answer depends on the circumstances in which the man and the wife are. Good God, you surprise me, man. I've known you for quite a while and consider you a sensible man. I didn't expect from you the answer you gave me. What kind of reasonable man can ever waste money so foolishly as my wife wants to? She just wants to relieve the monotony of her matrimonial life and to feel that she is a social being, not only a wife and a mother. Going to synagogue every Sabbath should be enough for socialization. She meets and talks with other women there. Women, even middle-aged ones, like to be admired. Do you let Sarah know that her charms are irresistible? I used to. We're too old now to admire each other. I've seen women looking on their mobile phone screen while walking on the street and still noticing my glance. Not even a stare, just a glance, by their peripheral vision and a momentary faint smile of satisfaction crossing their face. Those must have been young ones. Not necessarily. Do you find young women attractive? Yes, I do. Mei Ling excites me sometimes. She is very ladylike. Don't you think your wife might, in her turn, get excited by young men? Women don't experience the same kind of attraction toward men. In our Hasidic community, only men are allowed to sing religious songs because a man's voice doesn't excite women. Religious songs are spiritual nectar in the form of sound, emanating from God. At least, that's what the Vaishnavas say. I agree with them, even though they are not a people of the book. They believe they hold most of the truth, but they only hint at it. They never assert it. Baloney. They are the smallest religious group in the world. Hinduism has a lot of branches. Is Buddhism somehow related to Hinduism? Not exactly. Buddhism arose as an effort to combat polytheism in Asia. Some Buddhists see Buddha as a teacher who shows the way to unite with the impersonal God, while others regard him as the one and only God. In both views, idol worship and polytheism were rejected. Hinduism, however, survived because it acknowledges one supreme personality of God. The disagreements are only about which avatar is the fullest manifestation of him. Similarly, Islam was founded to convert idol worshippers, those who had rejected the high moral standards of Christianity, to a religion rooted in the Bible. Do you think Christian moral is superior to Jewish or Islamic one? Christianity had an ability to develop. It changed not only the Christian world, but also the lifestyles, morals, and laws of non-Christian countries. Jews and Muslims used to stone adulterous women in Middle Ages, and even later, while Orthodox Christianity has been very lenient to sinners. If a person commits something wrong, his karma will punish him for sure, either through other people or without them. This can only be remedied by remorse and repentance, and by actions done in accordance with them. This is why Christianity attaches vital importance to repentance and confession. Jesus Christ was the greatest humanist that has ever lived. Individualism has its roots in New Testament. Christianity intimates that a person is not merely a member of a community, but also a complete whole in himself, an individual endowed with free will. It opens a gate to a free world. Modern Western values draw their heritage from the fusion of Christian, Judaic, and Greco-Roman civilizations. Why did the Jews reject Jesus, George? Because Jews, and Muslims too, deny God's ability to incarnate himself as a man, which means to me that they think God is not almighty, omnipotent. I think they just cannot accept the Trinity. If God is one, then he must be a single person. How can one being have three persons? I don't fully understand it either, but I still lean more toward Christianity. I think there are allusions to the Trinity in the Old Testament. For example, in the scenes where three angels appeared to certain biblical figures. Why three and not two or four? What do you think? Why have Jewish people been persecuted throughout history? Some of the religious rules I know that Jews follow make a lot of sense to me. For example, kosher food. You wait a certain number of hours between eating dairy and meat, which reflects the commandment, don't boil a kid in its mother's milk. But your Hasidic custom of women keeping their hair very short, like men, seems odd to me. They look unattractive in private, yet wear beautiful wigs when they go out. Jews don't try to preach or spread their religion because they want to remain the only spiritual elite in the world. According to Torah, Jews are allowed to lend money with interest only to Gentiles, not to their fellow countrymen. This creates a double standard and can be seen as discriminatory. If you don't have a good credit history in the U.S., you are considered an economic non-entity. It means you are not a banker's slave. Only those who are slaves to money are successful in this country. Only exceptionally talented bohemians and sports people can make big money without having a credit history. I may be wrong, but I can't help thinking that Judaism is a mafia organized at a high spiritual level, making easy money through usury, and actively lobbying its interests in the governments of the U.S. and some European countries. The world's financial system, to the creation of which Jews have contributed enormously, is sucking the blood of humankind. How are we supposed to work together after you so severely criticize my people? Says Moshe, raising his thick blonde eyebrows and furrowing his high forehead. I know you still respect me, because my sentiments are not unfounded. Jews love money very much. Everybody loves money. No money, no honey, they say, says Moshe, smiling broadly, his mouth wide, lips thick and fleshy. You folks love it more than other nations. You, man, are a perfect example. Why do you think so? Because, selling shopping bags, you call yourself the bagman, but behave like a beggar, begging all your customers to buy your bags every day, every working hour. Rachmonis means have mercy on me, right? Bro, yeah, that's the meaning. I don't see anything wrong in it. They probably say it to each other too. Customers and sellers are tied together. We need each other. You should remember that before you ask your wife to cut your hair. Maybe a hairdresser also needs you as a customer. I have her do it because I know she does it well, not to save money. Don't be too judgmental, George. Put up with me, Rachmonis, says Moshe, smiling more widely, his bright, protruding blue eyes sparkling with amusement. I'm not too tolerant, am I, Moshe? That's okay. That's okay, because Hasidim are not tolerant either. This is a problem with religious and conservative communities. Only secular, liberal, and cultural societies can be pluralistic. In the contemporary West, pluralism is commonplace, which may indicate that religious societies are either dying or changing their nature by adapting to the social environment. In Georgia, where people with religious and conservative mentalities make up a greater proportion of society, pluralism doesn't have solid support. Georgians, as well as Armenians and Jews, are very wary of foreign cultures. This is why it's difficult for us, Georgians, to tolerate different principles and ways of life. Some Georgians are arrogant because they believe their culture is superior to others, and their religion is the only true religion. Arrogance is an abominable trait. An arrogant person is doomed to loneliness, whereas humility is the key to success in spiritual life. So, George, you really think it was Jesus Christ who changed the world? Yes, it was his teachings that evolved into modern laws and ways of life. He was not only God, as Armenians believe, but also a man. He showed us how the Logos and human effort together can change the world. There are some people who think they can change the world. Those who actually do, to any degree, have great capabilities, resources, and the willpower to achieve their goals. Such people are future-oriented. If we dwell on the past more than on the future, we become melancholic, pessimistic, and inert. We should consider the past only as much as necessary to analyze our mistakes. If we don't plan the future only after learning from the past, we will inevitably be disappointed. People oriented toward the future schedule the present according to their future plans. Such people are courageous because they don't worry much about present problems. Their consciousness is mostly in the imagined future. They usually achieve their goals, provided their plans are realistic. People oriented only toward the present may achieve small successes in life, but rarely accomplish great deeds. They typically work in fields that satisfy the basic needs of society. Those who want to change the world, but cannot, may lack talent, resources, or willpower, or all three. If reincarnation exists, such people might achieve their goals in future lives. Preachers, writers, artists, and musicians of genius can inspire others and even affect their inner nature. But the strongest and most reliable support is God. If a person seeking to fulfill noble aims finds him in their own microcosm. The leaders of the French and Russian revolutions also changed the world. They did, but they also shed a great deal of innocent blood. There are oppressors and the oppressed in every country, but the degree of oppression varies according to a nation's moral standards. Usually, the ethics of the two classes don't differ much from each other. The morals of the ruling class must be higher than those of the ruled. Otherwise, violent upheavals become inevitable. Wars and revolutions are always provoked and instigated by a part of the educated elite who fight at the expense of and through the lower classes. Jesus Christ and his followers, on the other hand, shed their own blood to change the world by changing people's ethics and thoughts. And what are those ethics and thoughts about? Just look around and read the newspapers. Then go to Saudi Arabia and do the same. You'll see the difference. They still publicly behead criminals in the birthplace of Islam. That difference is what they are about. Christianity, as a progressive religion, tells us that we have two options: either to focus on ourselves and those like us, in other words, on imperfect mortals, or to become part of the divine whole to which we are connected by billions of invisible nerves, despite our apparent isolation from it in this rough material world. Christianity teaches that we can shape our own destinies both materially and spiritually. The more time we devote to our spiritual elevation, the higher the place we attain in the spiritual world. Otherwise, we sink to the material level. Christianity calls us to abstain from sensual pleasure, thus hinting that the spiritual bliss awaiting believers in heaven is fundamentally different from the materialistic concept of happiness. Whereas Islam promises shaheeds, 72 virgins in paradise. Marriage, in the material world, is merely a cohabitation of man and woman to satisfy their sexual desires, produce offspring, and help each other through the hardships of life. Parents hope that when they grow old, their children will take care of them. So it is also a kind of insurance against old age and infirmity. It cannot guarantee happiness, but a successful marriage, a family, can create a protective micro-social environment for a person. However, some people regard marriage as an easy means to become part of the divine whole. Yet a husband and wife can never realize the oneness of the self and the universe without making individual efforts on their own separate spiritual lives. Dear George, you're either very clever or crazy. I think I'm the latter. I didn't really mean it. I used the word figuratively. Are you joking, or do you really have a problem? I myself have a weak nervous system. I've taken psychotropic medication. You must have noticed my tremor. I'm not joking. I have this problem described in writing. I could read it to you, if you'd like. Why not? Go ahead. I find the text on my phone and read it aloud. Blank. It may be that both positive and negative feelings are far more intense in the spiritual world, and that we humans are given physical bodies to prevent negative emotions from overwhelming us. When they're materialized through our physical form, their intensity becomes limited, and they no longer torment us as keenly as they would in the spiritual world. They can even be treated with psychotropic medications. Those who are not psychiatric patients still remain fragile and susceptible to mental disorders because in the material world, fear and stress surround us in daily life. Even a slight stumble can provoke fear of falling. When a fast-moving vehicle passes by, we instinctively fear being struck. We worry about losing our jobs, losing our loved ones, or seeing them harmed. I have a morbid fascination with negative emotions, habitually imagining horrible scenes and deceiving myself by taking them for real, lacking the courage to experience real horrors and pain in real situations. In my childhood, I often made fun of turkeys confined within a mesh wire enclosure, pacing along the fence for hours in search of an exit. Now I see a striking resemblance between their behavior and my own, and I marvel at my foolishness. Because of this similarity and self-deception, I have attached special significance to the words turkey and deception, making them symbolic weapons in my struggle against my illness, a senseless fight against my own perception of human vulnerability. However, I have noticed that often, but not always, I utter these magic words only after I have already imagined a negative reality with enough clarity to mistake it for something real. In other words, I deceive myself again, and calling myself a toki and a liar becomes yet another obsession tied to the others. Ideally, I should say these words right after a negative idea comes to mind, before I begin creating in my imagination situations that provoke panic, despair, extreme pain, loss of consciousness, and death. It often feels as if there were two persons within me, one obsessed with such compulsive negativities, and the other calling him turkey and deceiver of his own self. I have lived with these obsessions for almost 30 years. In recent years, these imaginings have become almost continuous, and I now live simultaneously in two worlds, the real and the unreal. Despite my having conducted participant observations among the followers of 4 major religions, and having practiced those religions, each aiming, among other things, to free a person from delusions like mine, I have become a victim of the mental illness called obsessive-compulsive disorder. My chief obsession being an intense desire to overcome the fear of violent death. I imagine there are 2 types of people: those who are emotionally stable, and those whose consciousness tends to rise or fall. That is, those who are exalted or depressed. The laws of the material and spiritual worlds are similar. When your consciousness rises high enough, you reach a point where gravity no longer operates. There is freedom of movement. With only a small effort, you can move in any direction without fearing a fall into the abyss. In that state, every step brings joy. Happiness becomes stable. This condition resembles childhood, which for most people is the happiest period of life, perhaps because we enter this world as fruits and objects of love. In my own case, however, my mind and body are easily influenced by negative emotions because my nerves seem attuned to negative frequencies. Sometimes, when intrusive ideas torment me, merely trying to relax my mind and body is not enough. When these thoughts grow too active, I counter them with positive thoughts. I must change my way of thinking. my very mode of cognition. Autosuggestion is often helpful in this effort. Human beings have two egos, one constantly correcting the thoughts and behavior of the other. In certain severe mental illnesses, the real ego loses its superiority over the false one. Thank God, this is not my case. When an athlete exercises, his muscles contract rhythmically for a limited time. Likewise, when we walk or perform physical labor, we engage our muscles at intervals. Normally, the body relaxes periodically throughout the day and continuously at night. In contrast, the muscles of some mental or neurological patients remain constantly tense, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This constant tension drains their energy, leaving them haggard and exhausted. Without proper medical treatment, they may die prematurely. The strongest and most reliable support in my struggle against the disease can come only from God and from the full realization that I live under self-created delusions. Have you gone to a psychiatrist? Yes, I have 3 times. How are you now? Still sick. Maybe you need to find a different doctor? Medical treatment gives only temporary relief. I always relapse. I need to rely on autosuggestion. I see it doesn't much affect your cognitive abilities. I can think deeply but slowly. Daily life and routine problems don't interest me much. I focus on eternal values, those common to all humankind. Is that why you quit journalism? Yes, partly. The main reason was my principle, not to dance to the tune of media owners. I wanted to be completely free. As you know, I've worked as a freelance journalist, researcher, and translator. It's almost impossible to find a decent, suitable job in Georgia because of widespread nepotism. In government agencies, directors of various departments cooperate to employ one another's relatives and favorites. We Georgians, in general, are a lawless people. Now, I'm thinking about writing a book, but my problem is that I can write only when a breeze of inspiration blows toward me, which happens seldom. By the way, marijuana for me is a kind of fuel for generating ideas. Thoughts seem to appear by magic, evanescent though they are. The weed is like a winged horse for me in the process of writing. I also use mantras. They activate the brain centers of memory and thought. Do you enjoy writing? For me, as for authors who love reading, writing is a restriction on reading. For others, it may be a soaring in the sky. I think avid, sophisticated readers stand a head higher than good writers in terms of erudition. They are the ones who examine writers. Writing, for me, is also a remedy for my mental illness, in that it replaces the old bad habits of my mind. Habits that provoke sensations, but not genuine feelings or sentiments. The activation of the thinking center elevates a person intellectually. I've fallen in love with the English language. The more time and effort I devote to learning it, the more I love it. Language is not only a medium of communication between people, it is embodied in literature, scientific writing, and orally transmitted folklore, and it shapes the soul and mind of its native speakers. Have you written anything to that end yet? Our conversation is interrupted by the doorbell ringing. A minute later, a man of about 60 presents himself to us. You visited me a few years ago, didn't you? Yes, I was going to say that myself. Haven't you changed your opinion about... No, my friend, I still hold the same opinion. What a strange person you are. You neither sell them, nor can use them. I'm not selling them, because their price is low now. They may become antiques in the future. I won't be alive then, but my descendants will sell them at a high price. We Jews care about our future generations. That's how we've survived so much persecution and become a prosperous nation. Dear me, who would be interested in a belt and a duduk inscribed with the name of some Skandernova? If it's just some Skandernova, why do you keep trying to persuade me to sell them to you for a nominal price? I'm just a middle-class Armenian from Los Angeles who likes to buy things inscribed with the names of talented sons of my nation, and sometimes enjoy looking at them. I said talented, but I meant rather talented, if you'll excuse the correction. I know that today's rather talented will become very talented in years to come. By the way, this is George from Georgia. He's a journalist and a researcher. I've hired him to translate one of Skandernova's poems into English, which I've learned by heart. Here Moisha recites the poem aloud to us. Oliverdi, Yakshioldi, an old company word. Come, let's pray to Televis Oliverdi. God in heaven will look down, that's for sure, through its mercy. Several young men in Orthodox were feasting. Bagrat's band with songs and music were eager in assisting. God in heaven they mentioned and shouted, Oliverdi. A table graced their venue, a meadow by tree-lined avenue. Whatever a person wished, there was so neatly dished. God the Father glorified, Oliverdi, Oliverdi. The feasting lads sat round the table, singing songs as best they were able. High God did they praise, Oliverdi be their aid. A toastmaster they elected, for eloquence well respected, jaunty, saucy, pretty witty, much renowned in the city. Jesus Christ they praised, Oliverdi be your aid. Bagrat with his precious band was a special honored guest. Sweet Shikasta was expected to amuse the men respected. Son of God did they praise and invoked Oliverdi. The song mentioned had in fact all the party fully backed, when Tamata with his jokes entertained honored folks. Jesus Christ they praised and shouted Oliverdi. The table set was much embellished. One couldn't have found any blemish. Smoked belly and fillet both were of the sturgeon. Not mentioning kebab first, I offer my pardon. God in heaven they praised, Oliverdi come to aid. The tablecloth was dyed blue, spotted with a greenish hue. Cucumbers and sundry greens come next to the crumbly cheese. God the Father glorified, Oliverdi, Oliverdi. The bouquet on the cloth was placed not far from broth. Everybody smelt its fragrance and paid it deep obeisance. God did they glorify, Oliverdi be your aid. Leg of beef was flavored with celery and garlic. It would soon be savored. Who cared for parsnip? Son of God did they praise and invoked Oliverdi. Fisher boiled carp and barbel, how delicious, what a marvel. He served them promptly on the leaves and put them next to steaming beeves. God in heaven they mentioned and shouted, Oliverdi. The toastmaster tipped him well. How much? We cannot tell. And had him soon, by way of fine, gulp down a big bowlful of wine. Shortly after all of this, the fisher left, so full of bliss. Son of God did they praise, and invoked Oliverdi. Bagrata's song in the low key was accompanied by Duduki. Sitting in the shady lane, feasters listened to the strains. God did they glorify, Oliverdi be your aid. Anybody might like this kind of gathering. It would give them appetite even if they were ill. God in heaven they mentioned and shouted Oliverdi. Tamata said, hush and listen. High God may be your aid. Cote, brother, please be ready. Let me pass you Oliverdi. Son of God did they praise and invoked Oliverdi. Iakshiol, brother, come and say it. It won't please me without a kiss. A carefree man is called Dardamandi. I love the happy-go-lucky. God in heaven they mentioned and shouted Oliverdi. Tamata was, as is proper, passing toasts to right folks, drinking wine to the dears, kept his mind quite clear. God did they glorify, Oliverdi be your aid. There was no displeasure. Everyone was held as treasure. I can say without fear, the company had no peer. Jesus Christ they praised and shouted Oliverdi. Toastmaster then proposed, long life to our heart's rose, for whom our eyes never close, whom we yearn for and are fond of, whom we feel happy next to, may our foes be put an end to. God in heaven they mentioned, and shouted. Austerity. Tamada said, drink the wine, as much as you guys can. You all, people, to a man, should repeat what I said. God did they glorify. Austerity be your aid. What Tamada had then said was reiterated. All the partygoers improvised with clarity. Nothing was debated, nor was overstated. It's hard to find elsewhere such true unanimity. Son of God did they praise, and invoked austerity. The next toast was raised towards a nightingale, by a rose which is enslaved to sing an enchanting tale, that craves night and day to see its bud unfold. God did they glorify. Austerity be your aid. The last toast was made to love. Drink it with a white glove. Pity the nightingale. Alas, torment is its accursed lot. God in heaven they mentioned, and shouted, Austerity. Every toast, I swear, Bagrat backed up with fanfare. Some of feasters were smoking, and the rest of them applauding. Jesus Christ they praised and shouted, Austerity. Drink to love and unity, and our fraternity. Doom and death to wicked men who blame us every now and then. Son of God did they praise, and invoked austerity. Merrily and with much clanking, to the last drop they drank it, and those who couldn't empty the bowls, in secret poured the wine down. God did they glorify. Austerity be your aid. Now long life to the dove, that helps us nurture our hopes, that imbues us with delight, appearing at first light. God in heaven they mentioned and shouted, Austerity. Look here, brothers, drink ye all the wine. Have no anger, and do not whine. Have you repeated all I said? Love the laborers, toil for bread. Jesus Christ they praised, and shouted, Austerity. You, my assistant, remind those, apt to forget what I've proposed. The words I speak to friends are quite easy to understand. Son of God did they praise, and invoked austerity. To Ertatsminda we should drink, empty the bowls without a blink. By its mercy we are pleased, none of us has been displeased. God in heaven they mentioned, and shouted, Austerity. Singing to the sweet Duduki, they walked then to the city. Soon they reached the Maidan Square, and dispersed, saying, Take care. High God did they praise, and shouted, Austerity. The toastmaster knows well, customs are to be observed. In response to austerity, one should say Iacchioldi. And surely to honor this there must come a hearty kiss. God did they glorify. Austerity be your aid. Christ imbued us with a desire to kiss. His resurrection opened the gate to bliss. He said that love is the uppermost peak. Without brotherhood, life would be damned bleak. Austerity Iacchioldi was established by Jesus. Not to feel sad and lonely, let's follow him. God bless us. How do you like it? Asks Moishe the visitor. I've read it before and liked it, but I didn't expect you, a Jewish man, to know this poem, so deeply imbued with the Christian spirit by heart. Well done, my friend. You surprised me. I'm half Georgian by blood. Oh, now I see. But do you know what the poem is about? I do, but George knows more about it, as a Christian and a pure-blooded Georgian from Georgia. What would you tell us, George? Skandernova is neither well-known nor much respected in Georgia as a poet because of the limited artistic merit of his poetry. His style is considered crude and unpolished, lacking subtlety. He was an ethnic Armenian, and he didn't even know Georgian very well. I personally like this poem of his because of its raw but vivid depiction of Bohemian life. He gives only a sketch of the traditional Georgian feast called supra, which literally means tablecloth. It is presided over by a tamada, toastmaster, who proposes toasts first to God, then to the family in whose home the feast takes place, then to parents, and successively to siblings, grandparents, children and grandchildren, ancestors, women, the motherland, those who died for the motherland, those who died untimely in the families of the supra participants, neighbors, and close or distant relatives. After these, non-traditional toasts are welcome. We repeat these toasts at every supra, strictly observing their traditional order, as a kind of ritual that constantly reminds us who we are, where we come from, what matters most in our lives, and what we should cherish. A true supra expresses respect for our ancestors, who pass their values, knowledge, and experience to us through it. It is, in a sense, a continuation of the Last Supper, a means of maintaining and transmitting to future generations the values that Jesus Christ imparted to his disciples. The supra generates pure and virtuous feelings that serve as the weapons of the soul, wielded against spiritual darkness. It becomes a kind of arena for eloquence and folklore performances, and sometimes even gives rise to ideas for future endeavors. Mr. George, please, now tell me, who is more entitled to own the relics? The descendant of Bagrat mentioned in the poem, or a person who has nothing to do with the poet? Asks the visitor. Sir, how can you prove you are Bagrat's descendant? And why do you think I have nothing to do with the poet? Remonstrates Moishe. They belong to my grandfather. He told me that the poet himself had given the duduk and the silver belt to his father's debtor as gifts, and that this great-grandfather of mine acquired them as pledges. Since the debtor couldn't repay the debt, my ancestor became the lawful owner of the items. On top of all this, I've been playing the duduk since my childhood. I love this instrument very much, and often listen to it played by Jivan Gasparian, an excellent performer. I have the right to choose whether to believe you or not, and I choose to believe you. So why shouldn't you believe me? Because I'm in an advantageous position, says Moishe, laughing. Ha ha ha! You know how to make people laugh. You must be a great bargainer. Ha ha ha! Okay, my friend, since you're still of the same opinion, it's time for me to bless you and your household and leave. Be well, my friends, says the visitor, and leaves. How did he say it? I'm just a middle-class Armenian from Los Angeles. Ha ha! He must be a poor Armenian from Brooklyn acting on behalf of a rich Armenian from Yerevan or Los Angeles. Don't you think so, George? Maybe. I can't exclude the possibility. The probability, George, not the possibility. Sometimes I think one day I may become one of those happy-go-lucky Dardamondi. What do you think? It's hard for me to even imagine. You never know, George. Life is full of surprises. Our conversation is interrupted again, this time by a telephone call. Moishe answers and starts talking with the caller. His son, Abraham, a fat young man with a hunchback, comes down into the cellar, where we are and where Moishe's home office is, and begins listening to the conversation. After a minute or two, he gives his father a fillip on the kippah and leaves. After Moishe looks up and sideways at him with the expression of a child caught misbehaving. Apparently, he has just made some blunder over the phone. I would never do the same to my father. That could be called an American influence, George. Even though you, like other Hasidis, don't have a TV at home and live in the middle of a large Jewish community? His mother has been spoiling him since childhood, too. Women who have been disappointed in their marriages tend to be more attached to their sons than those loved by their husbands. As for children, they mostly see their parents through the lens of one or the other. I understand your blunt remark. That might be the case. By the way, do you know the meaning of the word scruple? I beg your pardon for not being able to resist the temptation to tease you. I think I'm getting too familiar with you. You are a constant reminder that something is wrong with me. Sorry about that. That's okay. Go ahead in your usual way and don't mind it. So, I feel free to tell you that Jewish people are morally degraded, perhaps even more than Georgians. But they do have an excuse, I think. What excuse? The Jewish law that considers a person Jewish if their mother or maternal grandmother is Jewish implies that male Jews have historically been, and could continue to be, far outnumbered by female Jews. Too much alien blood has been mixed with the Jewish line for them not to be susceptible to the degradation of their religious morals. Yes, That's an obvious fact, and one can't do much about it. Going back to Alaverdi, Yakshioldi, what kind of people do you think are described as feasting there? Kuntos, jocose, witty, and dexterous street sellers, musicians and singers, and garachokelis, the manly artisans. Many kuntos had a suspicious reputation. Some were swindlers, others homosexuals. Their dance, kintari, is performed by men only and includes elements of gay coquetry. In traditional Georgian dances, both male and female dancers keep their torsos upright and still, whereas in kintari, dancers turn their bottoms left and right in one episode. I could tell you a story of two quintos. Sure, go ahead. There were two quintos, one from Tinihidi, Rock Bridge, the other from Hidistavi, the head of the bridge. They were great friends, but their characters hardly ever agreed. Hidistaveli was so insistent that if he lent someone a old and battered kopeck coin, he would pursue them to the bitter end to get it back, even if he could instead receive an entire cow in exchange. In contrast, Tinihideli was such a procrastinator that if he owed someone a bowl full of haricot beans, he would hold an expensive feast for the creditor rather than return the beans. Once, Tinihideli borrowed 20 kopecks from his friend Kidistaveli. When the term of the loan expired, the creditor visited his friend. Tinihideli treated him well. He served a chicken and a gallon of wine, showed great respect, and saw him off with this apology. "Excuse me, brother, I couldn't get the money. Give me 1 more month, and I'll repay you." A month passed. The creditor came again. Once more, Tinihideli served him a chicken and a gallon of wine and apologized. "Come after a month, and I'll pay you back." This went on for a while, 10 chickens and a coca of wine in total, until Tinihideli ran out of food. He said to his wife, "As I see, he won't give up his 20 kopecks unless I play some trick. I'll buy a coffin and lie in it. When he comes, you start weeping. Seeing me dead, he'll say, 'May the money be halal to him.' Then he surely won't be able to go back on his word." They bought a coffin. The wife donned mourning clothes and began shedding bitter tears. When the creditor arrived, she met him at the threshold and told him about the disaster that had befallen her household. Hearing this, Kidistaveli began weeping too. He approached the coffin and cried, "Woe is me! Oh, my 20 kopecks! Put me into this coffin, bury me with him, for he's got my 20 kopecks." A priest came, performed the funeral service, and the deceased was taken into a ruined church. The quinto did not leave the dead man alone, saying he would stay awake all night and be buried with him. At midnight, Kidistaveli heard footsteps. Thinking it might be devils, he rushed into the altar, terrified. Soon, 3 people entered the church carrying a bag full of money. They were thieves who had robbed the treasury and were dividing the loot. They lit candles, piled up the money, and shared it by handfuls. 1 handful remained. A quarrel broke out over it. Finally, one thief suggested, "Let's put the deceased upright in the coffin. Whoever severs him in 2 with a single blow can have it." They agreed, set the coffin upright, and one thief raised his dagger. At that moment, the deceased roared, "Hurry up, my deceased friends! Help me!" The quinto hidden in the altar, hearing this, cried, "Hold him tight! Don't let him go! We're coming!" The terrified thieves ran down the slope. The 2 quintos divided the leftover money between themselves. At last, Kidistaveli said, "Brother, now you have money, don't you? So give me my 20 kopecks." Tinihideli refused, claiming he didn't have it. Meanwhile, the thieves, having run some distance, stopped. One said, "Let one of us go back to see whether the dead are still upright or have returned to their graves." They sent one thief. Approaching the church cautiously, he peeked through a window. As soon as he did, Tinihideli glimpsed him, plucked his hat, and threw it to his friend. "Take it for your 20 kopecks." The terrified thief returned to his companions, trembling as he said, "Brothers, hurry, let's save ourselves. So many people rose from the dead that when they divided our money, Each got only 20 kopecks. One was left without a penny, and they gave him my hat instead. Startled, the thieves tucked up their skirts and disappeared beyond 9 mountains. Ha ha! What an amusing story. You, George, speak to me in fables and allegories, but I'm neither stingy like one Quinto, nor greedy like the other. I think you are both stingy and greedy, as well as callous regarding your employees' health. We are not supposed to carry 2 boxes at a time because they weigh more than what is permitted by law. It has harmed my lower back and joints. You always pay us on time and fairly, but you don't want to hire U.S. citizens because you don't want to pay their income taxes. Besides, you can easily dismiss us, undocumented aliens, without fear of being sued. You're greedy because you beg your customers to buy your bags every single day except the Sabbath. And you say you would work on the Sabbath too, if it were possible. Not to mention charging customers 4 times the amount of money you pay yourself for the shopping bags. What else can we call it except greediness? That's normal, George. There are thousands of people like me in the U.S. and millions in the world. You're a to-be-taken-into-account minority, right? Exactly. And one day you hope you may become the majority, don't you? Oh no, no way. That would upset the prey and predator balance and make everybody's life hell. So you confess to being a wild beast. Anyway, I still think you are a nice guy. You helped me out when I had a problem. But I still don't understand why you didn't believe me that morning when I told you I needed my previous week's salary. Because I had severe abdominal pain and was going to the hospital. You thought I wanted to quit the job without giving notice. George, I already apologize for that, but I can do it once more. I have seen so many liars and crooks in my life and among my employees that I have difficulty trusting people. The doctor who performed my appendix operation was a Russian Jew. He asked me just before the surgery how I was going to pay him. He told me I had to see him at his clinic 12 days after the surgery to have the staples removed and to pay him $1,000 in cash, which I didn't do because according to the law, he had no right to demand cash payment. I went back to the hospital and had the staples removed by an assistant to the doctor, who was an intern. I can never forget the kind expression on the face of another assistant, an Afro-American man, who calmed me and even gently caressed my head. Woe is me. Your arguments against Jewish people are inexhaustible. Maybe the Afro was gay? No, he didn't look like one at all, nor did he sound like one. Do you want more arguments against Jews? Sure, go ahead. My nerves are already accustomed to your attacks. Once, I attended a Jewish religious service in a synagogue in Tbilisi, and I could hardly believe my eyes. An auction was held to determine who would pay the most to earn the right to carry the Ark of the Covenant out of the altar. I was shocked. I don't see anything wrong with that. The money probably went to charity. I thought so too at the time, but I was still repulsed by it. What seems normal to you appears ignominious to me. That's your problem. People are united, and at the same time divided, by their constant striving for welfare and happiness. I think auctions held in synagogues divide people rather than unite them, considering our fallen nature. Religious institutions must be a source of spiritual inspirations that usually last for a lifetime. We human beings have the potential to elevate ourselves to the divine through the evolution of mind and soul, not through auctions. They remind me of the passage from the New Testament where Jesus drives the vendors out of the temple, angered that they had turned his Father's house into a marketplace. Could I at least hope that you like some of our customs? I do. I like the way your women dress. I like how you bring up your children. Orthodox Jewish girls seem to me decent, modest, bashful. Shyness is a woman's jewel and her weapon. It captures a man's heart. I also admire your dowry tradition. Giving dowries to daughters makes more sense to me than receiving money or valuable assets from bridegrooms, as Muslims do. Brides who bring good dowries can enter their new homes proudly, whereas those who are paid for by their husbands may sometimes hear reproachful remarks, implying that they should obey their husbands because they cost them no small amount of money. Thank God you at least like something in us. I feel much obliged to you, dear George, says Moisha, smiling ironically at me, but you've inadvertently put me in bad mood, my friend, by reminding me of shidduch. For my children, I need a good shudkhan, George, a good shudkhan. Desired future in-laws don't want to become my relatives because they think I'm poor, which I'm not. They don't want Chevy vans and ordinary small houses like mine. They want Lexuses and mansions. Don't worry, Moisha. It will take time, but eventually you will find proper shidduchim. Daddy, since you cannot give up discussing our family matters with your employees and embarrass us, maybe Mr. George can find our shidduchim among Georgian Jews. Ruth and I wouldn't mind moving to Georgia, the country of our ancestors, says Hannah from upstairs in the kitchen, loudly enough for us to hear her in the basement. Oh, damn it. Did they overhear me, or were they eavesdropping? Whispers Moisha to me, apparently horror-stricken. No idea. I mouth silently and then say loudly, that would be the fulfillment of my innermost desire to make you happy, Hannah. Okay, then go ahead and do your best, but don't procrastinate. Delays are not welcome in contests. There are a lot of Williamsburg Jews courting us, asking for a date, says Hannah, walking down the stairs to the basement with Ruth and stopping halfway. I think I could even shed my blood trying to get you back to your roots. But unfortunately, your great-grandparents and grandparents tried hard to stray as far as they could from their Orthodox Christian roots, and your father does nothing to regain his true family name. Family name is not an issue if the mentality is still there, but we've retained neither, and we don't speak Georgian either. If only you could see how Gvido and Jamal dance, your Georgian genes would resonate. Who is Jamal? He is your father's new employee, replacing me from tomorrow. So you still insist on trying to fulfill your Hollywood dream? Intellectuals cannot do menial work for long, because it oppresses their nature. I've done many different kinds of menial jobs in the U.S., not because I had to, but because I've always had a great thirst to know and experience as much of the world as my capacity would allow. Intellectuals would rather become alcoholics or drug addicts and die than change their psychosocial role to that of a menial worker. I feel my dream is going to come true. I'm sorry, but I have misgivings about it. Life becomes an especially intricate maze for people who cannot identify the social class to which they belong. Those must belong to the category of people with transitive consciousness. They will eventually go one step up or down the hierarchical ladder in their next lives, if reincarnation exists. He never fails to find an answer to a retort, says Hannah in a lower tone to Ruth, and then loudly, Okay, boys, behave. We're leaving, Daddy. See you in the evening. What a headache this girl is. She is clever, witty, and frolicsome, to say nothing of her beauty. I find Ruth more beautiful than her, even though she's chubby. Ruth is rather pretty than beautiful to me. She is definitely more serious than Hannah, but sometimes she does something more childish than her younger sister and angers her mother. For example, 2 days ago, when she was sucking a hard candy, she managed to move it with her tongue in such a way inside her mouth that it started rattling against her teeth, which embarrassed Sarah. "Ha ha ha, my little cutie! She is very endearing indeed. Okay, George, it's time for me to leave too. Let's see whether fortune smiles on me in the warehouse at least and brings me some good big orders. Vito told me this morning over the phone that Jamal has an excellent memory. He's been in the warehouse since 10 o'clock, and Vito's been showing him what to do and how to do it." "You told him why I dismissed Fidel, right?" "Yes. I warned him not to steal and sell the shopping bags to the neighboring shops." "What? You warned him? Is he also a thief, man?" "No, he's not, as far as I know, but you never know. Anyone can be tempted by the sin called stealing. Let's shake hands now, dear Moisha, and wish each other good luck. Hatzlacha. Good luck, George. Good luck to you too, and keep in touch." Part 3. Slow down, George. We don't want to die on our wedding day. "Don't worry, Guido. I'm a good driver. I've worked as a tour guide and traveled all over Georgia. I'm so happy right now that I can't drive slower than this." "Why are you happy? It's not you who just got married," says Hannah to me. "I'm happy for you and Jamal, my dear Hannah, and for Guido and Ruth. Shouldn't that be enough to make me happy? I hope George will make us happy too in the near future. Hannah and Ruth will do their best to find you a shidduch, my friend," says Jamal to me. "I'll find my shidduch myself in Georgia, but thank you anyway." We're sitting around the wedding table. The two newly married couples, the bride's two matrons of honor, the groom's two best men, a Georgian friend of ours, and me. We are the only customers in the restaurant Tamada this evening, since, thanks to the bridegroom's generosity, we've reserved the entire place in advance. I, as the Tamada of the table, am proposing a toast to the two newly made families. My dear Guido and Ruth, and Jamal and Hannah, I wholeheartedly wish you happiness in your married lives. May you have as many healthy and beautiful children as God wills. I also wish you success in your professional careers, since it is very important for the material support of / ask Jamal what his profession is first, and then explain to him the importance of it, says Moisha, appearing as if out of nowhere and interrupting me. He walks slowly at first, and then, all of a sudden, darts toward the bridegrooms, who have turned ashen-faced and stand transfixed with consternation. Clenching his fist, he tries to punch Jamal, but at the last moment changes his mind, rushes toward me instead, and strikes me in the face. I stagger backward. My vision blurs. Slowly I come to myself, forcing my agitated mind to appear calm, and go out into the street. Abraham, who had been attending to Moisha, runs after me, apologizing for his father's behavior and trying to soothe me. After his earnest entreaties not to leave the wedding, we go back into the restaurant and hear Moisha talking. "Do you people know what honesty is? I bet you don't. I don't think you even know what a wedding is. Is this how weddings are held in Georgia? Without a synagogue or church? And without the parents' knowledge? I think not. So what wrong have I done to any of you to be treated like a piece of trash?" "Guido, my friend, do you really think you're some kind of almighty macho? Do you think I don't know when and why you stole my customer database? That I don't know you have a U.S. citizen stepbrother in Chicago who's winning over my customers by offering them shopping bags for a miserly price? That I don't know you moved from an apartment to a hostel more than a year ago just to make me think you're a poor man trying to save money? That I don't know you've been dating Ruth for almost a year? If you really think so, you're very wrong. I approved Ruth's choice because at least you are a Jew, only by your mother's line, but still a Jew. I myself am half Jewish by blood. I know that you love your ancestors and respect traditions, unlike my son Abraham, whom I can hardly call my son because of his mentality and total indifference to his father's family business. I saw enough good qualities in you to accept you as a son-in-law, but I didn't expect you, as a sensible man, to behave so foolishly. You've disgraced my family by your behavior. My daughter's eloping with a Georgian thief and a Georgian crook. What more could this Moishe Kaufman wish for? He's as much of a thief as I am, I think. Shut up! You're just a despicable pilferer. I can never accept you as my son-in-law. Hannah is my wife already and will always be inseparable from me. I don't understand your logic. Guido took more than half of your business and your daughter away from you, and you think he's not a thief, right? If he's a thief, then most Jews would be thieves too, because they would do the same in Guido's position. This is why I've never employed a Jewish person, except him. What he did was not honest, but it wasn't theft either. He is dishonest, but clever. Like you. Why do you think I'm dishonest? Because you charge customers far more than an honest person would. You are not a man of business and cannot judge such matters. I'm more than a man of business. Guido, could you please go closer to your honorable father-in-law? What's the matter? Why should I do that? Asks Guido with a trembling voice. Go, you'll see why. Guido approaches his father-in-law timidly. Now, dear father-in-law, take a close look at his suit and touch it too. If you call me father-in-law again, my second punch will be aimed at you. Okay, Mr. Yanishvili, please follow my instructions. I'm not Yanishvili either, but okay, I'm taking a close look and touching it. What's your point? The point is that your crooked son-in-law got it from me as a wedding present. Jesus Christ, is it stolen too? Please, watch your interjections and remember you are a Jew. As for the suit, yes, sir, it is stolen. But am I in jail? I'm not, because I'm dexterous and professional. If you don't change your attitude toward me, I might even steal you from your wife and sell you to Hezbollah for a good price. Shut up, cries Moishe, rushing at Jamal, swinging his fist, trying to punch him, but falls to the floor as Jamal dodges. Guido and Hannah help him up, and Hannah, trying to mollify him, says, Daddy, my husband is not only a thief, he's also an artist and a dancer. Don't judge him too harshly. He's a kind-hearted man, and he loves me. He's very religious, too, in his own way. He was going to become a monk before I met him. Now, thanks to my charms, he's my husband. Moishe, why did you punch me, man? Do I have anything to do with your daughter's love affairs? I say, trying to divert Moishe's attention to me, and thus save Hannah. These two rascals were recommended to me by you, says Moishe to me, and storms out. But a few seconds later, he rushes back into the room and says to Hannah, Hannah, nothing can remove the stain of shame you brought upon your family. Why am I the only one who betrayed you? Asks Hannah. Because Ruth hasn't taken a single step unbeknown to me, except this last one. She told me about it a little too late, says Moishe, darting a resentful look at Ruth. Ah, so it's through her that you found out our whereabouts, right? Says Hannah, moving her head slowly up and down and giving Ruth a reproachful look. And who was it who, along with Jamal and Guido, kept our joint wedding a surprise for me until this morning? I had no idea that you and Jamal loved each other. You hid it from me because you knew very well that I can't keep secrets from our parents. I would definitely have told Daddy if I had known. You're a great actor. I wouldn't have been able to keep my love affair secret so skillfully. But you were quite able to pretend to Guido that you were hiding your relationship with him from our parents, says Hannah. How long have you been dating Jamal, dear sister? Almost 8 months. I fell in love with him at first sight. My poor mentally blind girl, says Moishe, slapping his thighs with both hands. Had you devoted more time and effort to your daughter's upbringing, they wouldn't have disappointed you now. I say to Moishe. You can blame me after you've brought up your own children, retorts Moishe, pouring the Georgian wine Kinsmerali into a glass to the brim and drinking it. We'll take better care of our future children, won't we, Jamal? Asks Hannah. Of course, darling. One thing's for sure. He'll train them as future thieves, and their coronation as thieves-in-law will take place either in Georgia or in Russia, says Moishe. "We can do it here on Brighton Beach," says Jamal, smiling. "Do you think he loves you, my poor silly girl? Are you sure thieves can love?" Moisha asks Hannah. "Yes, we can," says Jamal. "What else can you love except stealing? I could have stolen your duduki and silver belt many times, but out of love and respect for Hannah and her family, I never did." What a generous and affectionate man. "He loves his wife more than the duduki and the silver belt," says Moish, and adds, "I least expected you to be here, Mei Ling. You're supposed to be in the office now, making calls to obtain orders." "I'm sorry I had to lie to you about the reason for my absence. I love Hannah so much that I couldn't refuse to keep her company today," says Mei Ling. "Do you love her more than I do?" Moisha asks, drinking another glassful of wine greedily. "Definitely not," says Mei Ling. "But Hannah is a free adult American girl. She has the right to choose a husband and get married whenever she wants. She was born to and raised in an Orthodox Jewish family and must behave as becomes a decent religious Jewish girl," says Moisha. "My constitutional rights take precedence over the Jewish conceptions of decency," says Hannah. "And the United States Constitution was based on the Protestant Christian Code of Principles," adds Jamel. "What do you mean by that?" asks Moisha. "Hannah sympathizes with Christian traditions and morals," says Jamel. "Jamal doesn't mean that I'm going to convert to Christianity. Of course I'm not. I will keep to Judaism as long as I breathe. For my husband, it doesn't matter what religion I belong to," Hannah elucidates. "Be careful. Later he may change his attitude toward your creed," says Moisha, and drinks a third glassful of wine. "No, he won't. He is a pluralist and a Democrat, not a religious fanatic," objects Hannah. "If he is as democratic and pluralist as his country, then there's no point in relying on him," says Moisha. "What can be more democratic and pluralistic than erecting a statue of a robber? Arsena Marabdelli was a highwayman, but his statue stands in Mitzcheta, the ancient capital of eastern Georgia," argues Jamal. "Ray, was he a thief too?" "Most probably he was." "Are you proud of him?" "He was my childhood hero, and still is." "So what is the philosophy of Georgian thieves?" "Some people are too rich and we should steal some of their wealth." "Yeah, that's it. Very simple, right? And very just, too. Are you going to be stealing for the rest of your life?" "I steal because I don't make enough money. When I get work authorization, I'll be able to work in my profession. I'm a decorative artist. I can restore antique furniture." "Daddy, you know that Jamal has been doing 2 jobs for almost a year, working for you and dancing in this restaurant on weekend evenings, along with Gvito. I think stealing for him is more like a feat that he accomplishes skillfully and proudly. He doesn't really do it for money." Hannah interposes. "That's even worse than stealing for money, because it's a mental disease that requires treatment," says Moisha, gulping down a 4th glass of wine, and adds, "Have you seen them dance, Hannah?" "Yes, I have, Daddy. Their performance is superb. They are true professionals." "Is what she is saying true?" Moisha asks his sons-in-law. "We could dance, and you could judge for yourself," answers Gvito. "Can you dance Kinturi?" "How do you know there's such a dance?" asks Jamal. "I know a lot more than you two assume. So can you dance Kinturi?" "Yes, we can." "Go ahead and do it then." 3 of our partygoers being musicians, they take up their respective instruments, one of which starts emitting slow, prolonged strains. Jamal, one of the 2 dancers on the stage, pantomimes turning the crank of a barrel organ slowly, standing with his lower back bent inwards, making a semicircle with his body, simultaneously directing his open left hand to the front next to the waist, distancing the thumb from the rest of the joined fingers, and turning the palm to the floor. He turns his face towards the spectators, smiling knowingly and winking. There is another Quinto, Gvito, crouching before him and gazing up with a frightened expression. Suddenly, Jamal speeds up, turning the crank to let the drum and the duduk present themselves, and the trio harmonizes the sounds into a rather lively but streaked with melancholy piece of music, which starts with moderate tempo. At the same time, Jamal throws his right hand with a sweeping motion forward and upwards, scaring Gvito away, and slides with his feet to his right, now on toes and now on heels, pushing himself up and dropping himself down repeatedly. Then he quickly moves his left leg to the right and immediately runs sideways to the left with fast steps, holding his left hand just below his waist and the right one against his chest, and retaining the semicircular shape of his body. Next, he moves both open hands to either side of his waist, holds them there for 2 seconds, and then opens his arms like wings in a backward to upward motion, immediately dropping them afterward. Simultaneously, he turns around while crouching, and in this position wobbles around the stage, stepping his right foot to the left and the left to the right, while moving his arms in the same direction as his feet, miming the act of picking up things from the floor. Moving in this manner, he approaches the crouching Gvito and straightens his body for 2 or 3 seconds, holding his open hands by his waist and his arms like the wings of a fighting rooster. Then he begins to turn his open hands in different directions and at various angles, as if gesturing, "I don't understand why you are afraid of me." Gvito cringes and scoots backward. Jamal advances, suddenly raising both hands in a threatening arc. Gvito yelps and flees. Jamal lets his hands drop halfway, then lifts them again, wings unfurling. He raises his right toe to waist height and snaps it sharply down to the floor on the left. He repeats this footwork several times, alternating swiftly between both feet, each step precise and deliberate. Then, with a flourish, he lifts his open right hand to his coquettishly smiling face, turning his head gracefully from side to side behind it, now showing the right side of his face, now the left, his movements teasing, confident, and full of flair. At this moment, his left hand rests lightly on his hip. With a swift semicircular sweep across his chest and abdomen, his right hand rises gracefully upwards and backwards. He tilts his face toward the ceiling, smiling, as he glides smoothly backward on his toes. Here, Gvito plucks up enough courage to remove his tucked-up handkerchief from behind his belt and place it on the floor before his bullying adversary. Jamal stands akimbo, then slowly slides his legs apart, alternating toes and heels on the floor, while bending his head and torso forward and down. He picks up the handkerchief with his mouth, gradually brings his legs back together, straightens his head and torso, and resumes his original akimbo stance. As the music surges, Jamal's body becomes a blur of motion. He springs onto his right toe, flicking his left foot behind the right leg and striking the floor sharply on the right side. The pattern repeats rapidly by each foot, steps precise yet explosive, until he surges forward, toes moving one before the other, legs and waist twisting from right to left and back, while his head and upper body remain perfectly upright. His arms trace the rhythm of his steps, slicing through the air in harmony with every turn. He moves with such breathtaking speed that he seems less a man than a living flame, a flickering blaze dancing across the floor. With a final, dizzying 1.5 spin, he halts in front of the crouching Gvito, hands open on either side of his waist, the embodiment of controlled, incandescent power. Am I in my right mind, Hannah? Why, Daddy? Was it really him dancing or his double? It's amazing that such a rascal should have so much talent. Isn't it a paradox? What you just saw wasn't his talent as an actor, Daddy. It was his personality. The rascal was playing a rascal. You're adding fuel to the fire, girl, says Moisha, filling a 5th glass of wine, exclaiming, "Long live Georgian folk music and dances," and drinking it. We all follow his example. Moisha, please have some food. You've drunk so much wine already without having a single morsel. You'll get drunk very soon if you go on like this, I say to him. I guess I'm already drunk. George, my dear friend, forgive me for punching you. Please. You are the person I respect more than any other employee, even though I'm sure you connived with these rascals. Are the food and drinks at least kosher? Of course they are. This is the only Georgian restaurant in New York City that is kosher, says Jamal, hardly keeping his facial muscles relaxed after seeing Abraham's muffled, convulsive inward laughter. They've been prepared kosher at least, but not served in accordance with kosher rules. That's all right. There are not only Jews around the table, says Moishe, and takes a piece of cheese bread called hachapuri. Seeing the wine work its magic on Moishe, calming him and leaving him mellow and at ease, I decide it's time to resume the feasting and take up my role as toastmaster. Dear friends, I'd like to propose a toast to our parents, those who conceived and gave birth to us, who fed us, who loved and cherished us, who put us to sleep by singing lullabies. Let us not give them reasons to regret the way they brought us up. Let us strive to deserve esteem and achieve fame so that they may be proud of us. I wish the newly married couples to become parents soon. Everybody joins me in drinking the toast, including Jamal, though he does so only after saying that the only thing he has learned from his father is how to cut tomatoes into dainty slices, and that every time his father manages to do something he himself cannot, the old man feels happy. This makes us laugh. My father has taught me more than that, but while trying to defend his own, he unjustly damaged my reputation as an honest person, says Guido. How did he do that? I ask him. You know, in Georgia, the patriarch consecrates icons for different kinfolk sharing the same family name. One day, a distant relative asked me to tell my father that the people of our family name were collecting money to have an icon of St. George painted, one that would move from home to home until it had visited every family concerned, and would continue to circulate in this way. I told my father about it, but he ignored me. After a short while, that relative of mine met my father by chance and asked whether I had told him about the icon. In his defense, my father replied that I hadn't, thus making the man think I had intentionally withheld the information because I am Jewish on my mother's side. You see, sometimes even our parents wrong us, for they are sinful mortals like ourselves, but we must still love and respect them. Moishe signals Abraham to approach him, and when he does, whispers something into his ear. Abraham nods and leaves. Dear friends, let me now propose the next toast, a toast to children. Love for one's children is the highest of all feelings, for they are the result of their parents' love, care, and toil. As the years pass, parents first take joy in watching their children grow physically and intellectually, and later are saddened to see time leaving its marks on their children too. Loving mothers and fathers care for their children even in old age, when the children themselves have long been mature and capable of self-care. Parents devote themselves to their children, striving to spare them from hardship. Perhaps they believe that part of themselves will live on in their posterity after they are gone. Everyone drinks to the toast, saying, "Long live our children," though none of them has one of his or her own, except Moishe, who drains his wine silently. Guido and Jamal perform a fiery dance, blending improvisational fragments of the Georgian dances Ntiuluri and Kemsuruli. We all applaud, and I propose another toast. Dear friends, if arrogance takes hold of us along life's path, it gradually replaces our good qualities, humility, modesty, decency, generosity, empathy, and people lose respect for us. The members of the Supra glance at one another awkwardly. That's why, to keep themselves humble, they used to take off their hats before shaking hands. Who? Asks Hannah. I ignore her and continue. We humans often talk to ourselves, so if our thoughts are positive, the next ones that follow will also be positive. In other words, our psyche is like a wine jar. It echoes whatever you shout into it. Knowing this and trying to be positive, our ancestors sang, composed music, danced, and created poetry. Georgian plowmen sang urmuli to themselves while tilling the soil. They loved, they worked. They fought to defend their motherland from aggressors. They preserved for us our homeland, our faith, and our mother tongue. Without love, for which we cannot truly know God, the Logos, it is language that makes us human. Dear friends, we become not only children and parents, but also grandparents, and in time, ancestors. We can judge our ancestors relatively objectively only once we ourselves reach middle age. Having trodden half the path of my life, I am proud to drink this toast to our ancestors, and I will be happy if you join me in it. Everybody drinks the wine, after which our trio plays sweet music with 2 duduks and a dole. We enjoy listening and applaud the musicians. Then I propose another toast. From the very moment of birth, we come into conflict with our natural environment and with the basic laws of the material world. But God is merciful, and our loving mother and father take good care of us. Then our motherland comes to our aid. It protects us physically and socially, provides education and health care, offers a profession and a job, and cares for us when we grow old and weak. Our entire life is thus naturally connected with our motherland, which itself is closely intertwined with our religion, traditions, and language. The nearly organic unity of all these shapes our consciousness. A motherland must treat its children the way a human body takes care of its own parts and organs, giving priority to some of them. Unfortunately, our country cannot always take proper care of its citizens, for both objective and subjective reasons. We know well what the objective reasons are. Being a small nation, both in territory and population, and having an enormously large and aggressive neighbor that has occupied 20% of our land. The subjective reasons include ignorance, lack of professionalism, and moral degradation. According to Georgian tradition, daughters are given only a dowry, which usually consists of money or movable property. Real estate is to remain in the possession of the male members of the family, those who procreate and continue their lineage. This law defends and supports not only the family, but the whole nation. Now the collective West is imposing gender equality on us. If we accept it, over time we will lose our country, because Georgian women often marry foreigners. Georgia has given birth to great poets, folk musicians, and choreographers, not to mention hymns. Its mission in the world is undoubtedly spiritual. Love for our motherland and mother tongue can be surpassed only by the love for the Holy Trinity. It is through them that we approach God. As for our religion, our present-day church resembles an old grandmother who cannot always take proper care of her grandchildren. We must still tolerate and respect it. Long live the earthly trinity of our faith, motherland, and mother tongue. May the Jews drink a toast to their own trinity. Everyone drinks the toast and begins listening to an excellent performance of a soulful duduk music. When it ends, Abraham comes in. Georgia's several millennia-old winemaking tradition attests that moderate inebriation by wine is considered a blessing. And our dear Moishe, being under the influence of such a blessing, opens a bag brought by Abraham, takes out the familiar duduk and the silver belt, and says, "I was going to give one to each, but I've changed my mind. Gvito will probably forgive me if I give both presents to Jamal, provided he promises not to steal anymore and to learn to play the duduk." "I wholeheartedly agree with you," says Gvito. "It's a great honor for me to receive these gifts from you, and you have my word. I'll quit that bad habit and learn to play the duduk," says Jamal to Moishi, shaking his outstretched hand and receiving the gifts. "Now, I guess it's time to ask Mr. George what became of his Hollywood aspirations," says Hannah. "Indeed it is. George, tell us where you were and what you were doing after you left New York," Moishe asks me. "They denied me the chance to work in Hollywood because I didn't have a Social Security number. You need legal status in this country to work as an actor. I was returning to New York when the Border Patrol near El Paso, Texas, checked the bus I was traveling on, asking everybody if they were U.S. citizens. I told them I was a Georgian citizen and that I had lost my passport a few days before. So I was arrested and detained at El Paso Detention Center, having not a single penny. I didn't want to go back to Georgia. Therefore, I applied for political asylum, which was denied 3 months later. In the 14th month of my being there, I sued the government for detaining me longer than allowed by law. The court granted my release, and I went to Florida, staying there for a year to work and save some money. Now I'm going home. Only a fool would go back to Georgia from this paradise on earth, says Guido. Very strange indeed, adds Jamal. Thank you for the compliment, Guido, I say, but the frog is happy to go back to its swamp. What kind of place was that detention center? Ruth asks me. They called it an immigration camp, but it was worse than a jail. 3 parallel barbed wire walls around its facilities and at least 60 people in each barracks. Sometimes up to 20 extra people slept on boat-like makeshift plastic beds. The TV was on from 7:30 a.m. to 11 p.m. Stainless steel seats and tables were often used as drums by Latin Americans. A hell of a noise from 7 a.m. to midnight. I'm happy you survived it, says Hannah. My detention was relieved by the library and one extraordinary man, an embodiment of unconditional happiness for me. He didn't pursue happiness. He was already happy, in a blissful state. He was not mentally ill. No, he could maintain long, healthy intellectual conversations and was a sensible man in general. He just lived in a stably happy mood. I think such people mostly try to circumvent obstacles on their life path and overcome those that are unavoidable by taking them easy. I have made up my mind to become like him. Okay, my friends, it's time for me to leave. I'm not sure whether we'll be able to see each other again before I depart. So, once again, I wish good health and happiness to the newly married couples and to those who have honored them. Adieu. Goodbye, George. Farewell. Au revoir. Good luck, George. Adieu. I hear the exclamations from the partygoers. Hello, Levon. How are you, my friend? Jesus Christ. Is that you, George? What happened to your head, man? Nothing that awful. Just a natural process of going bald. They say it's thanks to too much masculine hormone. I thought you were in the U.S., buddy. I was there. Now I'm here, in Tbilisi, Georgia. For how long? Forever. Why? They don't want me there. Are you happy to see me, Levon? Of course, man. So are my family, relatives, neighbors, and other friends, which means I should live in my motherland. Our conversation is disrupted by the loud, shrill voice of my old acquaintance, the blind beggar, who is accompanied by an elderly couple and 3 children. Who are these people, Levon? Recently, he told me he's been making good money since he got his entire family involved in begging, and that soon he'll have enough to buy a small truck and start a small business. Wow, it seems like the alchemy works for him. What do you think of it? It looks that way. What is this? I ask Levin about the compartment of our security booth, and, not waiting for his answer, open its door. Oh my goodness, unbelievable. I'm so happy to finally have this long-wished-for restroom at the workplace. I get interrupted by the radio transmitter sound. Peace at Tbilisi, peace at Lima, peace at Albion. And now it's my turn to speak, and I say, progress at Sakura. Progress. You have listened to the audio version of the novel The Midnight Sun by David Mirza, available on Amazon.